I miss it now, though. Could you do it again?
No. I give it all my heart and soul and give it my best. If I get over the huffiness...
Are you going trick-or-treating?
I'll probably do something with the boys. Have a bit of crack, you know.
Where do you go?
Around the roads. We're in the country, you see. We're out and about. So
just get in the car and drive to a town.
Oh, you can't do that.
You could.
Could you do that?
Of course you do. That's what lots of people do.
They'd hunt you.
Not at all.
Get back to the country. Now, you wouldn't know.
Sure, all the other kids are in towns. Just take them to the town.
Nah.
I'm giving you a job. You don't like that,
give me a job. I have enough jobs. I have to buy chicken food today now and straw.
The most exciting thing about today is that...
Tell us, Halloween.
Christmas starts tomorrow.
Yeah.
Really, if the truth be told. The gloves are off.
Well, it's only a handful of weeks altogether, isn't it?
Exactly. Well, it's nearly next month.
Well, it's about 6 or 7 weeks, isn't it?
No, but tomorrow you can say it's Christmas next month.
Oh, yeah.
So that's
it's hard, but scary enough, isn't it? Funny enough, you know.
The big man will be getting there.
Oh, ho, ho. Exciting as well, exactly, I have to say. Can we have a good show now?
Lee, take care of yourself.
I'll do my very best. Right, you too. Have a good show now.
Was it last night you slept 9.5 hours now?
No, it was Tuesday night. Okay. I went to bed at 7:30. I was so tired. Me and Noah in the bed. Went out. Then he was up early then, you see. Oh, see, going to bed. See, when you think you're going to get to bed early, you feel it on the other side, you know the crack.
You're looking all right nonetheless. You must be getting enough sleep. All right, Lee, thank you so much indeed. It is the 9 Till Noon Show. And at 9 o'clock, let's kick things off with a news update. And it's over to Donald Kavanagh. Good morning, Donald.
Thank you, Greg. Good morning. The families of those who died in the Creasla explosion say a public inquiry needs to be established, even if the Garda investigation is still ongoing. They've been told the investigation into the explosion will be complete early next year. Representatives for the families say they feel a step closer to a conclusion after meeting with the Justice Minister yesterday evening in government buildings. Hugh Harper lost his daughter Leona in the 2022 blast. He says they've waited too long already.
We're coming to Halloween, one of Leona's favourite times of the year, and then coming to Christmas, where we'll have an empty chair again at the Christmas table, where we'll go and spend nearly all day at our graveside, to leave our graveside and go home without her again. I can't put a measurement on that to make everybody understand how that feels.
Police in Derry have arrested a man and seized suspected Class A, B and C drugs following a major search at a property in Ballygrole Road yesterday. With more, here's Donna Marie Doherty.
Police say the search was conducted by members of the district support team, assisted by local neighbourhood officers, detectives from the crime branch and a dog unit. Quantities of suspected cocaine, cannabis, diazepam and pregabalin were recovered, along with a sum of cash and illegal fireworks. The total street value for the seized drugs is approximately £34,000. The 31-year-old was subsequently arrested on suspicion of a number of offences. Urging people to come forward with any information, police say they are committed to tackling the illegal supply and use of drugs and will continue to investigate those who profit from the consequent misery and harm.
The number of people who have died in flash flooding in southern Spain has risen to 95 while rescue teams are working to find those feared missing. The number is expected to rise further. Spain's King Felipe has warned there's been enormous destruction to infrastructure and as a result, some communities are harder to access. And an evaluation process into the government's actions during the COVID pandemic needs to have the power to compel key decision makers, according to ENTHU. Professor Anne Scott will chair the review of the country's response, which will have fewer powers than a statutory inquiry. ENTHU leader Peadar Tobin says the high number of deaths and the enormous societal impacts of those times need to be properly and fully investigated. He says he doesn't believe the current plan for the evaluation will achieve that.
It's clear that the leadership of this government do not want a full public inquiry in relation to this. And it's clear in my view that they don't want the inquiry or any investigation that they have to have the powers to compel witnesses or papers. And I think this is, a major mistake.
Well, the forecast and any lingering mist patches should clear shortly, leaving a mostly cloudy and mainly dry day with some spots of light rain or drizzle. A few brighter intervals possible as well as the day goes on. Top temperatures this afternoon, 13 or 14 degrees Celsius with mostly light southwest breezes. And that's Highland Radio News. We're back with news again at 10 o'clock. Check all the news on the website highlandradio.com. But for now, from the news team, good morning.
As a woman, you know your body better than anyone. But when you're looking for answers, Irish Life Health gives you access to GPs who are specialists in female health to guide you in areas like menstrual health, contraception, fertility and menopause. Our female health benefit is included on our first cover plan from just €42.75 a month. Ireland's lowest priced hospital plan. Join today. Search Irish Life Female Health. Terms and conditions apply. Irish Life Health DAC is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
And now, it's time for the talk of the Northwest. The 9 Til Noon Show with Greg Hughes on Highland Radio.
Hello and a very good morning. You're very welcome along till Thursday's 9 Til Noon Show. It is the last day of October. It is Halloween, the 31st of October 2024. And I hope you're all very well indeed. And I hope you have a spooktacular day. We're here, of course, for the next 3 hours to keep you informed and hopefully entertained with our usual mix of news, features and conversation. We want you involved throughout, and I'll remind you of those contact details because we really love listening to you. Maybe you want to text us something with a Halloween theme. 086 60 25,000. That's the WhatsApp and text number, 086 60 25,000. You can give us a call if you wish, 07491 25,000. 07491 25,000. It's Donna Marie and Shannon looking after you today. And if you want to email, it's comments@highlandradio.com. And just to remind you, if you listen to the podcast or indeed overnight, we love to hear from you as well. You're part of the family. You can email comments@highlandradio.com, or for that matter, text or WhatsApp, and we can pick them up that way. Right, it is a Thursday morning, and let's have a look at those newspapers. The Tyrconnell Tribune, a Letterkenny man, Frank O'Donnell, who has recently resigned from Fine Gael, is to contest the general election as an independent candidate. The Rathmullen native is not short of political experience, having previously been actively involved with the Fine Gael party for over 20 years. Until recent weeks, he was the chair of the Fine Gael branch in Letterkenny and says he'd become disillusioned with the party at a national level with the mantra that the Republic of Ireland is the best place to be on earth. And interesting too, I noticed inside there's a full big page spread on Fine Gael's John McNulty. Where has it gone? It's in there anyway. Of course, because John McNulty from Ardra, but obviously using the newspaper and hoping to use the newspaper as a way of sort of reaching voters up this part of the world as well. Just an update from this paper as it relates to the school in Milford that we did an hour on there last week. Minister Charlie McConalogue has confirmed that a senior official from the Department of Education will carry out an inspection at Milford National School in the coming 3 weeks as the urgency of the cramped conditions on site have reached a breaking point. The minister said he believes that the hopes of the community will now become a reality, and he feels more confident following assurances from Minister Norma Foley last week. That being said, the press release we got from the Department of Education was not that encouraging. They kind of were saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, look, we offered them a couple of buildings or a couple of classrooms on the site that they're on, and that's the way we kind of try and do things, you know, to avail of sites that are already under the ownership, and if we might look at it again into the future. As I say, that is a rough paraphrase there, but obviously things more optimistic, it would seem, following that meeting, because the school feels that site's just too cramped. There's no green space. There's dangerous steps and cramped classrooms. They really need some decent investment there. The Derry News this morning, council backs call for reinstatement of winter fuel payment. Derry City and Strabane District Council have voted unanimously calling for the reinstatement of the winter fuel payment at a special meeting of council on Tuesday. People Before Profit councillor Sean Harkin proposed the motion to endorse the Unite the Union initiated pledge letter signed onto by all of the Stormont parties calling for the reinstalment of the winter fuel payment. And I suppose that's showing a bit of sport, but will have no meaningful impact on that payment being restored, of course. It's just not the way it works, unfortunately. Let's go to the Nationals, and shocking scenes coming out of Spain. Unbelievable stuff. Many of you have probably been to Valencia. I think you can fly directly into it, can't you? But some of the images of a year's worth of rain effectively falling in a couple of hours. Cars it's amazing the power and the destructive nature of water, just washing cars like toys down a street until such time as they reach a narrow point of the road and just start piling up on top of each other. 95 are dead in the Valencia region. They anticipate that will rise. And this is an area that suffered incredible heat waves during the summer. Many of your holidays out there were almost unbearable because of the amount of heat. And now the city streets, some of the images, they look like rivers. The worst flash floods eastern Spain has seen in 4 decades have left more than 95 people dead, many others missing, and left many areas in chaos. Torrential rainfall began on Tuesday night and continued into yesterday in the Valencia region on the Mediterranean coast, as well as parts of neighbouring Andalusia and Castilla-La Mancha. Streets were flooded as rivers burst their banks, bridges collapsed, and cars, often with drivers inside them, were pushed along by the water. But by last night, 95 deaths had been confirmed, almost all of them in Valencia, amid fears that the death toll would increase further. The whole of Spain cries with you, the Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said, addressing those affected. We will make available all the resources necessary so that we can recover from this tragedy. We won't leave you alone. The farming community also devastated by this. Most of the citrus fruit grown in Spain is grown in this region, and those fields are buried underwater. What that means for crops and incomes there. Perhaps maybe you were out there or in that area during those floods, and maybe you care to recount the experience. Let us know. 086 60 25,000. The Irish Daily Mail reports this morning of confidence in COVID inquiry hit. The COVID-19 inquiry into how the government handled the pandemic will not be able to compel people to give evidence, prompting major concerns about how effective it will be. It will also not be a tribunal and will not be an inquest, the government has said, and nor will it be led by a judge, as was the case in the UK for COVID-19 inquiry. Now, effectively, this inquiry is just to say, right, we got that right, we got that wrong. No one's to blame. And that's what it's all about. It's not about finding a person responsible, or maybe you have your the knives out for Houlihan or whatever it might be. It's not going to be that kind of inquiry. They're going to look at it and go, what could we have done better? Should we have closed schools as soon as we did? That kind of stuff. So it's not going to have any teeth. It's not going to be judge-led. It's not going to be a tribunal. The hearings will not be televised. However, they will be held in public and could be streamed online. Campaigners for the elderly and those who need support are now questioning whether the inquiry will be worthless, while one TD said the lack of compellability is not good enough. Now, in fairness, the UK tribunal was pretty worthless as well, because it was in the news for while it was running, and then that's the end of it. Nothing to come from it. Reading on here, though, Fine Gael Deputy Fergus O'Dowd, who has spoken strongly of the impact of the pandemic on the elderly, told the Irish Daily Mail, it's about the truth. How do we find out the truth? If significant players refuse to cooperate or turn up, that's not good enough. That's not acceptable. What would you like to see in it, though? What would you like to come from this tribunal? Look, I mean, it was clear at the time it was very clear at the time, say, for instance, in the first instance, that the older people were more vulnerable. And even just one thing, and people were being discharged from hospitals into nursing homes where the most vulnerable were. It had happened in Italy, and we started doing the exact same thing over here. And I remember talking about it at the time and asking questions about that, thinking there's something seriously wrong here. Why are we moving people who are sick into areas where people are most vulnerable? That's the kind of stuff they're going to look at. They're not going to be finding anyone responsible for that. They're going to say, look, it was a panic situation. We did what we had to do, and so on and so forth. So it's going to cost a lot of money, and I don't know what will come from it. I anticipate very little, but what would you like to see coming from it, I suppose, is a question. Paul McGinley has given a very open interview to a podcast where he talked an awful lot about his father, who would be, as Paul is familiar to listeners here in Donegal, of course, given their really strong connections to the area. In the Irish Independent, Paul McGinley has described the challenge of managing his father's dementia as a huge toll on everybody in the family and a huge commitment, with the Dubliner adding that he feels he must give back. Speaking in a wide-ranging interview on the Indosport podcast with Joe Malloy, McGinley spoke candidly about what has been a difficult period for his family. During the pandemic, his dad, Mick, was diagnosed with dementia. His mother, Julia, died last July and suffered with aphasia, I believe it is, a language disorder that affects the ability to communicate. McGinley said the suddenness of his parents' health problems really affected his family. Anybody who has battled dementia will know it's a horrible, debilitating illness, the 2014 Ryder Cup captain said. We're 4 or 5 years into this now, and every year it's decreasing. You don't really see it in front of your eyes, but when you look back to what he was doing this time last year, that's when it hits home how much he's even gone down from last year. And that's the story, and that will resonate with an awful lot of people listening to this show today. The Irish Farmers Journal, over 20% difference in vet bills for TB tests. There's a huge variation in TB testing charges across the country, an Irish Farmers Journal survey has revealed. The average TB testing cost for farmers surveyed in Connacht, $6.66 a head, based on a 50-animal herd. This was 20% higher than the average prices paid by farmers in Leinster, who were paying $5.52 per head, based on the same 50-animal herd. The per head cost is based on 2 call-outs, tests and reading, plus the individual animal charge. However, individual farmers reported much bigger differences on both call-out charges and individual animal testing charges. The most expensive call-out charge reported to the Irish Farmers Journal was €160 in Galway, while the cheapest was £50 in County Limerick. Let's just go to page 4 to see if there's a map. It's always helpful, is the map. No, there is no map. I don't know where Donegal sits. Ulster, Cavan, Monaghan, Donegal. Call-out charge here, €72. And the TB test cost per head, $4.45. So it's pretty much smack bang in between the most expensive in Munster and the least expensive in Leinster. So you're pretty average there. Not being ripped off, but you're not being ripped on. The Irish Daily Star this morning. A man found in possession of nearly 800 images of child sexual abuse material has received his sentence. Now, I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritties of this, but I think all of us who have any interest in the care and nurturing of children would understand what a child has to go through before there's an image. As I say, that's as deep as I'm going into it. But a man, he was found in possession of nearly 800 images of child sexual abuse material. He received a suspended sentence, no prison time at all. Dublin Circuit Criminal Court heard yesterday that Gardaí carried out a search of the residence of Mark Moran, a 44-year-old, in June 2015 and seized a number of devices after receiving a tip-off from police in Britain. When these devices were analysed, 782 images and 20 movies of child sexual abuse material were discovered. Moran of Ashbrook Terrace, Salamant Avenue, Ranelagh, Dublin 6, pleaded guilty to possession of child sexual abuse material referred to in law as child pornography. This moves on to try and change that terminology, and the sooner it is done, the better. And fair play to the paper, actually, for describing it what it is rather than what it's referred to in criminal law. Moran has no previous convictions, has not come to Garda attention since the incident. Garda John Walsh agreed with James Dwyer, senior counsel, defending that the analysis of the devices was delayed due to a shortage of resources, and Moran wasn't arrested until 2020. Judge Martin Nolan, who's quite a well-known judge at this stage, said a substantial amount of material was found, noting this type of offending is of a serious nature. He said the legal precedent from the Court of Appeal is that a non-custodial option must be considered in the absence of aggravating features. So that's it. And we were talking yesterday about, and we were speaking to a young man, Jack, and we were talking about how widespread cocaine usage is, amphetamines, all other types of drugs, that they're easy to get as fast food, for that matter. Piece of cake, Facebook, Snapchat. And you'd imagine then when the Gardaí go to the bother of being undercover, going through the investigation, trying to get the drugs off the street, trying to apprehend those that are responsible for it. Because obviously, one person deals, how many people are taking drugs as a result of that? And I note yesterday, I don't have the details directly in front of me, but there was such a case before the courts yesterday, and no custodial sentence. Community service, I believe, was given in that case. I'll double check that a little later on. The Irish Daily Mirror. Education Minister Norma Foley has said it is clear missing 8-year-old Kyron Doran was lost in the system. Speaking at government buildings, she told the Irish Mirror that she expects to receive a report on the child's disappearance this week. Kyron was first reported missing to Gardaí in August after Tusla raised significant concerns about the young child. They effectively called to the house and noticed he wasn't there 2 years after he disappeared. He had been living in Dundalk. He's now missing and presumed murdered, with Gardaí investigating if he has been missing for 2 years. It's understood his school believed he was moving to another school in the north at the end of 21-22. And as I said at that time, I don't know what can come from that, how things can improve, but if a child, and as I say, I know lots of you talked about the COVID inquiry earlier on. I know lots of you had children that were getting sniffles all the time when they were off for in excess of 20 days around about that time, and getting emails or letters from the school, which people found quite offensive given the world we were in. But getting letters and emails off the schools to sort of say, well, why is your child not in? You need to explain this, or we're going to have to report you to TUSLA. I'm sure some of you listening got that. And here we have a 2-year-old, an 8-year-old, though he never, it seems, reached age, tragically, who they just believe is in a different country, and that's that. We should definitely have a system. I believe that if a child, there should be welfare checks, even if the parents and they're saying, right, we're off to Cork or whatever. There should definitely be a system where, 6 months in, there's just a little welfare check to make sure the child is safe and well. I mentioned this on the show yesterday, and it's reported in the papers today. This is the Irish Daily Sun. Nearly half of you out there, you parents, give their children pocket money with digital wallets, the most popular method, followed by cash. So pocket money is dished out more digitally than via cash. The average age children start being given money is 9, and most parents say they need to earn it by doing some household chores. Paul Roach, chief of the Teachers Union of Ireland's credit union. Sorry, he's the Teachers Union of Ireland Credit Union. Okay, which ran the study, said the notion of pocket money is relatively common. Giving a child a small financial reward can be valuable in teaching them financial responsibility. What I thought was interesting about that, the scales have already tipped. Most of you are actually giving the money digitally, transferring it from your Revolut to a Junior account or similar apps. All right, that's papers. If there's anything contained within there that you want to comment on, please get in touch with us now. 086 60 25,000 WhatsApp and text. And good morning to Mark and Kathy, among the hundreds watching the show across various platforms and on our website. Just to let you know that you can watch all of our guests, be it in studio or via video, by going onto our YouTube channel if you're at home on your smart TV or Fire Stick, Highland Radio Ireland. Give us a like and subscribe if you don't mind. You can fire it up there on your big TV rather than watching This Morning or some other nonsense about things happening in a different country. Or you can watch us across our Facebook pages and on the X platform.
Daily newspapers are courtesy of Cosgrove, Centra and Diner, Mountaintop, Letterkenny.
Today's show is brought to you by the Waterfront Hotel, Dunlow. December 14th, Christmas party night. Drinks reception, 4-course festive dinner, and the amazing Hard to Beat band, followed by a late night DJ. Only €45 per person. Limited availability. The Waterfront Hotel, Dunlow.
Tinny's Toys, your local toy store. Christmas Club is now open. Everything for newborn right up to model collectors. Leck Road, Letterkenny. Or shop online at tinnystoys.com. Did you know that we even give 5% cash back on all purchases when you sign up to our loyalty program? Tinny's Toys, much more than just farm toys. Leck Road, Letterkenny. Or shop online at tinnystoys.com. Terms and conditions apply.
Running a business isn't easy, but accessing support should be. The new National Enterprise Hub is the single source for all government support for your business. With over 180 supports in one place, it's easier than ever to find grants, advice, training, and more. And don't worry about not knowing what you need. Our helpful team will guide you every step of the way. Visit neh.gov.ie to learn how we can help. The National Enterprise Hub. Support starts here, an initiative of the Government of Ireland.
On Business Matters this week, my guest is Dublin-based Donegal woman Elaine Noonan, the founder and chief executive of Community Connect, Ireland's first nationwide baby bank charity. So join me, Chris Ashmore, on Business Matters after the 6 o'clock news on Sunday.
Business Matters on Highland Radio is brought to you by Local Enterprise Office Donegal. If you have an idea to start or grow your business within Donegal, contact the Local Enterprise Office to find out more about the supports available for businesses. See localenterprise.ie/Donegal.
Highland Radio Time Checks brought to you by EirGrid, the operator and developer of Ireland's electricity grid. EirGrid, powering up communities, powering up Ireland. The time is?
It is 23 minutes past 9. Welcome back. Now, we don't necessarily have a complete figure to show the level of homelessness in Donegal. We have sort of northwest figures, but that doesn't count everyone because the system doesn't really work like that. But amongst them is Emmett McGrath, who is homeless, homeless in Donegal. Emmett, thanks for your time this morning.
Yes, Greg, there. How's it going?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing, Emmett? Because, you know, your life's upside down here at the moment. You've been effectively living in your Jeep for a year.
Yeah. I'll tell you, the council haven't really done much, to be honest. I'm still on a waiting list, and they had a house up in Bridgend there, and they put my name down for it, and it wasn't accepted on it. And the social welfare cut me off in August, and I have been off since, the 2nd of August, and I had no income coming on since then.
And how did you find yourself in this situation? Without going into any personal details, but I mean, you were living in accommodation up until a year ago?
Yeah, that's correct. I was in accommodation for a year, and they stopped that just because they said they were paying too much towards homeless accommodation.
And so, at any point, were you being supported to live in emergency accommodation? What was the situation there?
Oh, they had supported me for so long, but it was only the year they'd done. But once the year was up, they told me now they wouldn't be able to do no more for me. And they'd given me more vouchers there recently, but no one's taking them.
And now you find yourself with your social welfare stopped, so you've have you any income at all? How are you supporting yourself?
I'm not able to work or nothing as well because of my arm. The Letterkenny Hospital fucked my arm up when I was younger, and I'm starting to get sore now, like arthritis and that.
Well, apologies for the language, but I understand the situation you find yourself in. So you can't work, you're not on social welfare, and you're living in a Jeep.
Yeah.
How do you keep going?
I don't actually know. I just do. I think my daughter kind of keeps me going. Well, I thought of her in my head. She kind of keeps me going, really. But other than that, I don't have no fight left on me.
And what do you want from? I presume it's support from the local authority.
I'm not asking very much. I would just like to be housed and a bit of welfare come on and try and get back on my feet again. Really.
Have you been offered anything like a hotel room or anything like that?
Nothing. The council's given me vouchers, and I haven't been given no help by nothing.
And they stopped the vouchers because they said it was too expensive.
Yep, that's correct. And I was paying so much towards the hotel myself as well, along with the council.
Yeah, quite a lot of money actually.
Yes, I was paying so much every week, and then I was paying it myself then because they'd cut it off, and I had nowhere to go, so I still had to stay in the frontier itself. So I was paying the whole payment myself for weeks there, so it was when I was on the frontier.
And as you say, your name was down for a one-bedroomed house in Bridgend, but you missed out there.
Yes, somebody else got the location. Like, I know when I'm from Bridgend all my life, I thought it made sense to give it to somebody from the area rather than giving it to a complete outsider. I'm not trying to be racist or trying to be unhelpful towards any other people, but beneficial towards somebody that lives in the area.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, you're living in your Jeep. Obviously, you're going to look on and form an opinion. It wouldn't make you a bad person. And in terms of any of the organisations that support homeless, Emmett, are there any hostel facilities or anything like that in your area?
No, there's no hostels in my area. Nope. As I say, then Letterkenny, the closest, like the Donegal County Council was wanting me to go to Ballyshannon to stay in homeless accommodation to come back to Carndonna to see councillors on a weekly basis, like.
And I mean,
so
obviously,
it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
You've been through one winter and a relatively mild summer. You are at the moment facing into another winter in your Jeep, effectively.
That's correct, yes, and that's not ideal.
Yeah.
To get showers, my clothes washed and all on a weekly basis, trying to keep clean and hygienically rightly.
But you feel that with everything that you've been through, you feel that you're sort of losing the fight now a little bit?
Yes, sort of, yeah, because every time I've had a wee bit step forward, I'm definitely going backwards, like. Yeah. And having counsellors involved and stuff like that doesn't seem to work. No, counsellors... there's a counsellor local to me. He's been very helpful, but other than that, I'm still not getting what I'm supposed to be getting, the help that I'm entitled to.
Yeah, and I mean, again, sorry, I think I asked, but I maybe missed your answer. Why did they cut your social welfare? Because at least...
Me, because I'm no fixed abode, I have no address, and then they were looking for air codes, and they're actually now, the social welfare is actually looking for a letter from the landowner that I'm currently sitting on.
Yeah, okay. It's a desperate situation.
They're putting me through all the obstacles they can. To me, personally, the social welfare don't want me on the social welfare, but I'm genuinely, it's needed.
Well, you're desperate, obviously. I mean, it's a desperate
It's
situation.
I'm not taking a hand out or nothing. Like, I've been straight with everything.
Yeah, you've no income and you're living in a car.
Exactly.
Right. Well, listen, we'll make contact with the council to see what the situation is. They might say we don't comment on individual cases, but I mean, I don't think anyone sort of wants to be part of a society or a community that sort of leaves people behind, like you're being left behind here, because what you're looking for is a bit of stability to get back up on your feet properly.
At the end of the day, I've been working hard up until now all my life, paying my taxes. A bit of respect backwards. It works both ways.
All right.
It works both ways.
All right, Emmett. Listen, leave it with us, okay? And we'll see what we have to say. I mean, I presume for various reasons you want to be in the Inishowen area. Am I correct in saying that?
Oh, yes. Like, as I say, I grew up in Bridgend all my life, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Bridgend. Within the surrounding areas, within the surrounding areas, I'd be happy.
All right, okay. It's just I just don't understand why you are not at least being given support for emergency accommodation.
Yeah, and then that was a doctor's appointment. Like, I had to go to the doctor's there yesterday, but that was weeks and weeks and weeks. I was trying to get a doctor's appointment just to go and see a doctor about my arm and get on the social welfare properly.
Okay. Right, Emmett, leave it with us. I hope your situation improves significantly. Thanks very much indeed. That's Emmett McGrath, homeless in Donegal, living in his Jeep for the past year. Emergency accommodation support has been withdrawn, he says. No vouchers for that any longer. And also... no social welfare, no air code, of course, then, which makes everything else complicated. And you can understand Emmett's frustration. There was a one-bedroomed property available in Bridgend. He is originally from Bridgend, and you can understand his frustration, I think, that that went, and he lost out there. We were talking just at the top of the show about children now more likely to be given pocket money digitally rather than via cash. A caller says, I think it's harder to conceptualise money if it's digital as an adult myself, but maybe as children will probably be digital their whole life. It'll be easier for them. I personally, and I've said this before, scratched record warning coming in. Maybe it's just I can generally be an early technical adopter. I don't see any difference. In fact, I find it easier to track spending and what have you digitally, because even on the apps you can break it down as to what you spent on food, electrical items, and the different types of stuff. Like, I find it very useful, but I understand that I might be an outlier in that regard in my generation, if that makes sense. Check out our social media on Facebook or on Instagram. It's all part of the Halloween fun. We're asking you what your favourite Halloween memories from your childhood are. Give us a comment underneath and see what the story is. 086 60 25,000, that's the WhatsApp and text number.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook, and at highlandradio.com.
Today's show is brought to you by the Waterfront Hotel Dunlow. December 14th, Christmas party night. Drinks reception, 4-course festive dinner, and the amazing Hard to Beat band, followed by a late night DJ. Only €45 per person. Limited availability. The Waterfront Hotel Dunlow.
Nutria's Super Beef Gold ATP is now on promotion. Buy 10 bags, get one free, or get €15 off per tonne in bulk. Nutria's Super Beef Gold ATP delivers frame and thrive in all ages of cattle. Contact your local Homeland store or farm commercial specialist today. Visit nutrias.ie for full product details.
We're celebrating 125 years of Opel. And with a milestone like that, what better time to explore Opel's extensive award-winning range? Plus, if you order your 251 Opel now, we'll gift you with a €500 Dunn Stores gift card. Other than that, we've not much else to talk about. In fact, the percentage of time we're going to talk about finance offers, that would be 0%. Happy buy day to you. Find out more about our 251 offers at Heron Auto Opel. See heronopel.ie for details. T's and C's apply.
That's the sound of someone sleeping soundly on a Restex mattress. Choose from the Donegal range. A Teelan, a Kinnigo, or a Mulroy mattress. It'll change the way you sleep forever. Restex beds, mountaintop Letterkenny. Leave the rest to us.
Get ready for Billy's annual fundraising dance for cancer patients and their families at the Abbey Hotel on November the 8th. An unforgettable night of live music. Tickets are just €20. Available at Good and New Shop Letterkenny or the Abbey Hotel. Plus, there's a chance to win a cruise and other great prizes in our special draw. Don't miss out on a night of fun and an amazing cause. Be there, November the 8th, the Abbey Hotel.
At Hidden Hearing right now, get up to €2,000 off state-of-the-art hearing aids, even if you don't qualify for PRSI. Visit hiddenhearing.ie today. T's and C's apply.
Shop fashion, home and beauty all under one roof at McElhenney's today. Stocking hundreds of your favourite occasion wear, designer and high street brands including Tommy Hilfiger, Jerry Weber, Barber, Gant, Columbia, Christina Felix, Kevin John, Vero Moda and Michael Kors, as well as the most sought after beauty brands. Shop in store or online at mcelhenneys.com.
Okay, we're joined on the programme now by writer and commentator Emma D'Souza. Good morning, Emma. Great to see you again.
Good morning, Greg. Good to see you.
Thank you very much for joining us. I can see over your right shoulder your husband, Jake. Hi, Jake.
I'm good. How are you?
I've heard a lot about you over the years, as they say.
Oh, mostly bad, I'm sure.
Well, you can't be too bad because Emma fought hard for you. But anyway, people will be familiar with your story. Emma, you've been talking about how Jake is Irish. He chose Ireland. He's gone through, the very protracted process to become a legal Irish citizen. But you've sort of been talking about how we treat the likes of Jake and others. I don't want to paraphrase it because I want to hear exactly what you feel and what you've been saying.
Yeah, well, I think, Greg, I just have seen, like many people, I have seen an increase in hostility and I suppose intolerance towards some newcomer communities in Ireland. We can see it quite a lot on social media in particular. I mean, if you take a look at my post on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it today, the comments underneath that are pretty bad. And I was thinking about this over the weekend. We had the Dublin Marathon, and it just, again, when you see the onslaught of abuse that some people are experiencing who are very proud to have become Irish. And of course, I'm the proud wife of someone who became Irish. And I just feel like that it is deeply disturbing to see this continue to grow in Ireland. And I think when we consider it, we as people don't get to choose where we're born. We don't get a say in that part of the process. But if we're lucky in life, we sometimes do get to choose where we call home. And I do think that people who go through a protracted process, who find home in Ireland, who choose to be a part of the Irish nation and are very proud to become Irish, I think that this process that we see happening, this kind of discussion we see happening, where people are picking apart people who have become Irish, saying that they're not as Irish as people who were born here, that they can't be Irish because they haven't got a bloodline. This stuff is really ugly and is not good.
I think really where it came into focus for me, because I'm not necessarily personally affected by it, was when we had Irish athletes competing who were Irish, right, but weren't white. That's the simplest way to put it. And, those celebrating them, I noticed on sort of some online platforms, those celebrating them were rounded on, effectively saying, that person's not Irish, they're not Irish, they shouldn't even be running for Ireland, and so on and so forth. That's the type of stuff we're talking about, I presume. But Emma, I want to put it to you, and I suppose Jake, because Jake's got the lived experience as well. Like, are we talking about the reality in Ireland, on the ground, in the community, lived experiences, or are we focusing on a very vocal but a very small group of individuals, anonymous in many cases individuals, on the likes of the X platform, which is a breeding ground for hate and division?
Do you want to comment?
I could just say that the anonymity definitely bolsters the I guess, the confidence of some of these people. And I can say personally, I've both of us, of course, have been subject to these sorts of comments, but not as much in person. I think the anonymity definitely emboldens these sorts of people to be able to vocalize their reprehensible opinions. So social media isn't a help.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's
Yeah,
it.
and I
It's
think-
interesting. I'd be curious just if that is just where these people live in this space, and they feel they can say whatever they like, or does that pull back the curtain and give us an insight into what's the views of a lot of people out there? Do you know what I mean, Emma? What's your view?
Yeah. I mean, I would say my opinion on this, Greg, is that there is real life people in Ireland who are holding these views. And we can see that from some of the protests we see happening in Ireland, some of the even arson that we see, the targeting of asylum centres or places that are going to house people who are seeking refuge in Ireland. I do think it's a small minority, but they're amplified online. And if you actually look at a lot of the social media accounts that are making these comments, those hashtags Ireland is full, they're actually based in the United Kingdom or they're based in the US. So you can see actually that a lot of sort of far right movements or far right agitators in other countries are actually trying to amplify the far right movement in Ireland and working together collectively through social media platforms to make it seem much larger than it is. Even on that post I have online, you can see a lot of those accounts, are hiding behind anonymity and also are not based in Ireland. But I do think in general, we do see an increase of hostility and intolerance happening in Ireland that could be being bolstered by all of this stuff online.
Yeah, because it can start off as a trickle and very quickly turn into a river. My concern is that, and it could be left, right, middle, centre, up or down, that side of the politics is not what I'm talking about, but it seems the way you get your point across or the way you get into power or the way you make money is through division. And it seems to be almost unanimous. Kamala Harris, for example, in America, tried to run a campaign based on unity and not throwing mud and not name calling. And they've had to abandon that effectively. They've had to get down into the trenches and say, right, that ain't going to work. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I don't think it's necessarily one wing of politics. It just seems to be in this space, and I think an awful lot of it is happening via X. It seems to be in this space that division and anger and you're over there and I'm over here is how people are getting forward now. That worries me. Jake?
Yeah, I would share that concern too. And Jake, maybe you want to speak about the US perspective on that, the division.
Yeah, the division, I mean, there's always been division in the States in politics, red versus blue, but maybe I can attribute it maybe to the fact that I've been away for a while, but it certainly seems significantly worse in the last couple election cycles. And I mean, I'm sure I'm not alone in believing that Donald Trump specifically has a significant role to play in that collapse of civility between the two sides.
Yeah, but was it Michelle Obama says if they go low, we go high, but they've abandoned that themselves as well. They're just flinging garbage at each other, quite literally, in terms of in language.
I would say, had Donald Trump not begun his political career, if you will, by attempting to throw Barack Obama's American citizenship and with his entire racist tirade to begin with,
Barack Mohammed Obama was effectively what he was calling him in the election.
That was how he made himself popular. Before that, he was a 2-bit reality TV star and a nepotism baby.
But he also spoke to 90 million Americans, which is that's a lot of people. It's a lot of people. But there's a lot of people, and I know you're not having to go with them either. But it's not like he's radicalized 2,000 people and they've taken over a state. This is half of the US population. But back to the other point, Emma. I just wonder too, though, if the anger towards different communities is maybe a little bit of ignorance and frustration, but maybe some of it justified, just the anger going in the wrong direction. Okay, so I spoke to someone just a little earlier on, regular guy, he's homeless. Okay, his name was down for a house in Bridgend, and he's living in his Jeep for a year, and he's overlooked, and that house has went to a new member of the Irish community, let me put it like that. At the same time, not far from him, there's numerous hotels which are accommodating people from outside the country, right? So if I were him in his Jeep, and it wouldn't be motivated by hate or racism or anything, I would start going, well, what's going on here? I just wonder sometimes if people are frustrated, but sometimes they're putting the frustration, the path of least resistance, they're putting it in the wrong direction. What do you think, Emma?
I think the problem here is government policies. I think that when you look at the fact that we're now in the 9th month of record homelessness figures in Ireland, and you look at the policies that are being actioned, and the reality is there are lots of people in Ireland that don't feel the benefits of prosperity, that are in deprivation, that we see poverty levels increasing, and that kind of socioeconomic does damage the social fabric of any society. But it shouldn't be newcomers who are seeking refuge, who are coming to start a new life, who have chosen to come to Ireland. It shouldn't be those that are being persecuted or targeted, because it's not their fault. It's actually the government policies that are at fault in terms of how people are benefiting in Ireland. So I think, yes, there's absolutely issues around socioeconomic deprivation. People don't feel the benefits of prosperity in Ireland, but that then spilling over to target vulnerable communities is a really ugly thing, especially when you think about the history of immigration with Ireland and how many countries took in Irish people whenever they had to leave, either through, the famine or through the conflict here in Northern Ireland. So when you think about the history of migration that Ireland has and the Irish people all over the world, this kind of targeting of vulnerable immigrant communities is particularly distasteful.
But I don't dispute that. I think we should all treat each other as humans, because that's what we are, right? But the reality also is that we can't talk about immigration and try and improve our lives as if it's historical. Unfortunately, many communities across Donegal and the country are incredibly depopulated of young, bright, intelligent people who don't see a future for themselves here and are now the next generation going out to the United States. And that then, this is where the situation gets incredibly complex. The anger is further increased because their families see new Irish people taking their jobs and their opportunities. And as I say, I'm trying to choose my language carefully, but it just shows how complex the situation is. I think, though, if we are real free thinkers, though, and not sheep, we do need to start to think for ourselves and see who's responsible, see what can change and who can make that change.
Yeah, well, hopefully voters in Ireland will have the opportunity to have their say on who will be in government in the next election. We know there will probably be an early election call quite soon. And it's important when going into any election to think about, has your life improved since the previous election? If it has not, which party is more likely to be able to change things for you? But you are right, Greg, to talk about those issues around young people. We have it in Northern Ireland too. We call it the brain drain, where people leave, young people, and most of them don't come back. And that has an impact in terms of society and in terms of the outputs that we have, the talent that we have. And the only way that's ever going to be changed is through proper investment, through proper government policies. I mean, look at places like Donegal. I'm in Fermanagh. The infrastructure in Fermanagh is really bad too. We're a very rural area, still no trains, not likely to get any trains anytime soon. And that does actually really impact particularly more rural counties. And we really need to see significant investment, innovative new policies and ambitious policies that expand the reach of prosperity outside of places like Dublin.
Yeah, because I know you mentioned, finally, I won't keep you much longer. I know you mentioned earlier on, Ireland is full, and clearly, geographically, it's not full. Our population was much greater than it was before. But in terms of services and the lived experience, there are those that feel they could argue it's full because the hospitals are full. You can't get into the hospitals. Accommodation is full. That's why we have so many homeless people. Schools are full. That's why the classes are too big. So whilst obviously the country can accommodate much more people on the land mass, a lot of the services are full. And I'm not feeding into that rhetoric because I don't think it's sort of motivated by the level of thought I'm giving it, if you know what I mean. But there is an issue, and then people still see more and more people coming in, and they see their situation worsen. It's a rich country, right? But that's not trickling down to the working middles. I don't like using classes, but anyway, you know what I mean. Those who aren't working and the working poor.
Yeah. I mean, look, you have, again, it comes back to that issue around government policies, Greg, because you have 160,000 vacant properties in Ireland, and we have a serious issue around homelessness. If those vacant properties were actually brought back in, then we would not have the systemic problems that we have in Ireland around homelessness figures. So it just keeps going back to the lack of government action to address these issues, whether it's health waiting lists, whether it's housing, whether it's other issues related to education. And we really need to see a significant shift. And I just want to kind of close back on this point around the targeting of newcomer communities. I mean, I haven't seen some of the stuff that is on there is absolutely vile in terms of trying to say that people can't be Irish because they don't have a bloodline to Ireland. This kind of like push to this nationalistic, ethno-based idea of Irishness, I think it's really damaging to society in Ireland. And I think people are beginning to see it a little bit more. And those of us who want to push back against it, we really have to be quite vocal in saying that that's not the Ireland that we aspire to.
No, it doesn't feel very Irish, to be honest with you. But there's so many we just want to lose the run of ourselves as we try and get all this sorted and find out where we're going. Interesting points. Thanks very much. Great to see you, Jake. Thanks very much for joining us, and Emma D'Souza as well. Thank you. Take care of yourselves. All right. What do you think about that 08660 25,000? I'm from New York, a blue state. I'm for Trump and his dream team. It's exactly what Ireland could be doing with, says a listener. Our president called us all garbage. Go Trump. That comes in from Anne. And this is, sometimes you do wonder if Joe Biden is, to some extent, working against Kamala Harris. He was on a Zoom call, and either by accident or design, he described Trump supporters as garbage. Now, since then, a couple of hours later, he was saying, no, I don't mean all of them. I don't mean 90 million of them. I just mean the one that went up and made a joke about Puerto Rico being garbage. And then overnight, Donald Trump comes out dressed as a garbage man, a bin man, effectively. And so it goes. Right, okay, Louise joins us now. Louise is from Strabane, but now her home is in Valencia. Louise, how are you? Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Greg. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm okay. I presume when you moved to Valencia, you would never have imagined that you would see the devastation that has been caused by this incredible downpouring of rain.
Yeah, to be honest, it felt like being back in Ireland with the rain. I never thought I was going to see rain like that here. It definitely was a shock, I think, to everyone in the city, not only people who aren't from here, but it definitely was different, to say the least.
And in terms of the areas affected, is it the centre of Valencia? Is it the outskirts? Is it all of it that was most devastated by these images? That you've seen them as well, Louise, of the water running through the streets, taking cars and everything else with them?
Mm-hmm. Well, Valencia in itself is quite a big city. So in the city centre, everything is normal. The actual city centre, there's been no damages. There's nothing. It's a normal day outside. Yesterday it was just, I looked outside and there was nothing outside my house. However, in the neighbouring towns, just on the outskirts of the city, are destroyed. And for example, I know people who were stranded in their houses because of the floods. They couldn't get out yesterday, and their businesses are destroyed, their family businesses. I know that my boyfriend's Spanish, and his town has been damaged as well, but thankfully everybody is safe and everybody is okay. But it definitely is a shock, and even though the city centre is okay, everybody does feel the effects of it. So,
for sure. Your boyfriend is currently stranded in Madrid, isn't he? Such as the impact it's had on transport systems.
Yeah. So Tuesday, I commute to my work. It's half an hour outside of the city. So thankfully for me, I got the train back home just as normal. But on Tuesday, we were looking out the window thinking something's coming. It didn't look right, but we managed to get home. But after that, all the trains were cancelled because a lorry had fallen on the tracks.
Oh, wow.
So all the trains were cancelled, and he went to get the train in Madrid. He was there working for the day, so he didn't know anything was going on. When he went to get the train, all trains were cancelled, and he's still in Madrid. He can't get home.
And just briefly, Louise, the conversation now is turning to how early the warning came. You'd be familiar with Ireland, our yellow, orange, red warnings, and people give out to them. I hear even talk of a black warning being introduced in Spain. But was there any indication from the authorities or the weather services that this was coming?
Well, on Tuesday morning, there was a weather warning on the apps and things saying that there was a yellow warning, a yellow alert. But outside it was fine, and then it was around 3:00 in the afternoon. I think it started to get a bit worse. So in the morning, the rain was really bad, but then it stopped, and then it was in the afternoon where it started to really get worse. But there was an alert. I can't remember the exact time, but it was when I had gotten home. There was an alert to everybody's phone, so everyone's phone started to go off, saying that everyone had to stay inside. So there was alerts on Tuesday afternoon or Tuesday evening, and there was another alert yesterday morning sent to people's phones just to warn people that it's better to stay home and not to travel because of the roads and the train track closures and things.
Right.
So there was alerts sent, but yeah, it was.
I think really the conversation is were they so severe that people heeded them? And very sadly, lots of people that have passed did so in their cars. Louise, I'm really appreciative of you talking to us, and glad you're safe, and hopefully your boyfriend gets home safe soon. Thanks for your time. I do appreciate it.
No problem at all. Thank you for having me.
Take care. Okay, all weather very settled for the next few days. I'll give you an update on that after this quick break.
Today's show is brought to you by the Waterfront Hotel Dunlow. December 14th, Christmas party night. Drinks reception, 4-course festive dinner, and the amazing hard-to-beat band, followed by a late-night DJ. Only €45 per person. Limited availability. The Waterfront Hotel Dunlow.
Join us this Thursday at 1 p.m. for another episode of Lunchtime Lives, coming to you live on Facebook from Toys at Foy's in Ballbuffet. We'll be diving into all things toys just in time for the festive season. From top gift ideas to the latest must-have toys. That's this Thursday live on Facebook from Toys at Foy's in Ballbuffet.
Beidir go bhfuil tú ag siúl abhaile le lad a bhfuil tú anna hóca leis tar éis ihe i mar an chláiste. No beidir go bhfuil tusa agus lad eile i daxi. Tar éis díobh búla le chéile i glob. No beidir go bhfuil tú tar éis dul abhaile le duine aigen tar éis an carthú cuine a bhí ar aus ar fad. Bíonn go leor uaireanta agus átainna ann ar is gáidbhain a rá, cad tá wein agus cad nachfuil wein. Beag bean ar a bhfuil ar bun, bíoch an córá faoi halúán. Teachtareacht ó Rialtas na Héireann.
Thinking of getting a new car in 2025? Why not get one in 2026 as well? Buy a selected 251 Nissan and we'll replace it with a 261 Nissan for free. For details about this and all our 251 offers, contact your local Nissan dealer or visit nissan.ie. Nissan. Defy ordinary. Terms and conditions apply.
Check out Sister Sarah's, the ultimate gastropub in Letterkenny. Enjoy live sports daily on our multiple screens with surround sound, plus live music every weekend. Why not book your party at Sister Sarah's with a range of rooms and food options available? Let our family look after yours at Sister Sarah's. Serving food you'll love from Wednesday to Sunday.
Teagasc will hold an organic information meeting on Thursday the 31st of October in the Clanry Hotel, Letterkenny at 7 p.m. Topics will include organic farming systems and organic scheme changes required to become an organic farmer, steps to conversion and acres in organics. This is targeted towards recently converted farmers and those thinking of joining organics, and all are welcome.
Highland Radio weather updates with McElhenny's. If you haven't started using the McElhenny's Layaway Club, it's not too late. Spread the cost of Christmas with designer gifts for the whole family. Available by phone or in-store at McElhenny's Ballybofey.
Okay, some mist patches early. They've cleared mostly at this stage, and it's going to be mostly cloudy and mainly dry with a few spots of rain or drizzle, and perhaps a few brighter intervals. Temperatures 13 or 14 degrees. And we are going to take a break now for the news and obituary notices. Don't go anywhere.
Today's show is brought to you by the Waterfront Hotel Dunlow. December 14th, Christmas party night. Drinks reception, 4-course festive dinner, and the amazing hard-to-beat band, followed by a late-night DJ. Only €45 per person. Limited availability. The Waterfront Hotel Dunlow.
The Letterkenny Halloween Fest is on Thursday 31st with spectacular fun for all the family. Dress up for the CDP's fancy dress competition and get on the trick-or-treat trail between 1 and 3. There's storytelling, a Halloween Fest parade down Main Street and so much more. All afternoon from 12:30 this Thursday at the Letterkenny Halloween Fest. You dare not miss it. For more info, see Shop LK on Facebook.
There's only one thing as good as a TUI holiday, and that's looking forward to one. So get next summer sorted and secure your TUI holiday today. Choose beach, city and cruise breaks across a wide range of destinations with Cyprus and Tunisia new, plus all your favourites like holiday villages, Splash World resorts and our own TUI Blue hotels. Secure now with a low deposit and early booking savings. That's next summer's holiday sorted. TUI, live happy. T's and C's apply.
On Business Matters this week, my guest is Dublin-based Donegal woman Elaine Noonan, the founder and chief executive of Community Connect, Ireland's first nationwide baby bank charity. So join me, Chris Ashmore, on Business Matters after the 6 o'clock news on Sunday.
Business Matters on Highland Radio is brought to you by Local Enterprise Office Donegal. If you have an idea to start or grow your business within Donegal, contact the Local Enterprise Office to find out more about the supports available for businesses. See localenterprise.ie/Donegal.
St Columba's College Tranarder Open Evening for 6th class primary students and their parents or guardians takes place on Thursday 7th of November at 7 p.m. in the school hall. A copy of the student's birth cert and PPSN is required to complete the application form.
Live, on air, online and on the Highland Radio app. This is Highland Radio News.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock. Donald Kavanagh at the news desk. The families of those who died in the Creasle explosion say a public inquiry needs to be established even if the Garda investigation is ongoing. They've been told the investigation by Gardaí will be completed early next year. Representatives for the families say they feel a step closer to a conclusion after meeting with Justice Minister Helen McEntee in government buildings last evening. Hugh Harper lost his daughter Leona in the 2022 blast. He says they've waited far too long for answers already.
We're coming to Halloween, one of Leona's favourite times of the year, and then coming to Christmas, where we'll have an empty chair again at the Christmas table, where we'll go and spend nearly all day at her graveside, to leave her graveside and go home without her again. I can't put a measurement on that to make everybody understand how that feels.
Speaking for the families after the meeting, solicitor Darragh Mackin asked if an inquiry would have taken so long had this happened in Dublin rather than Creasle.
The question these families ask themselves is, had this happened in Dublin, would they be here 2 years later asking for an investigation? The key point of today is this: the Minister has not ruled anything out. We now look forward to an urgent decision, because the reality is this: time is of the essence now. An election is pending. These families don't have time to give. They want a decision, and they want a decision now.
Police in Derry have arrested a man and seized suspected Class A, B and C drugs following a search at a property in Ballygrole Road yesterday. With more detail, here's Donna Marie Doherty.
Police say the search was conducted by members of the district support team, assisted by local neighbourhood officers, detectives from the crime branch and a dog unit. Quantities of suspected cocaine, cannabis, diazepam and pregabalin were recovered, along with a sum of cash and illegal fireworks. The total street value for the seized drugs is approximately £34,000. The 31-year-old was subsequently arrested on suspicion of a number of offences. Urging people to come forward with any information, police say they are committed to tackling the illegal supply and use of drugs and will continue to investigate those who profit from the consequent misery and harm.
An evaluation process into the government's actions during the COVID pandemic needs to have the power to compel key decision makers, according to Aontú. Professor Anne Scott will chair the review of the country's response, which will have fewer powers than a statutory inquiry. Aontú leader Padar Tobin says the high number of deaths and the enormous societal impacts of those times need to be properly and fully investigated. He doesn't believe the current plan will achieve that.
It's clear that the leadership of this government do not want a full public inquiry in relation to this. And it's clear in my view that they don't want the inquiry or any investigation that they have to have the powers to compel witnesses or papers. And I think this is, a major mistake.
Lebanon's caretaker Prime Minister says he hopes a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah can be announced in the coming hours or days. Israeli media is reporting a draft deal written by the US could see their military pull out within a week of a truce starting. Neither Israel nor the militant group have commented. The White House is urging caution, saying there's a lot that doesn't reflect the state of negotiations. The number of people who have died in flash flooding in southern Spain has risen to 95, while rescue teams are working to find those feared missing. The number is expected to rise further as Spain's King Philippe warned there had been enormous destruction to infrastructure and, as a result, some communities were harder to access. Galway could see a light rail system developed similar to the Luas in Dublin. A feasibility study commissioned by the National Transport Authority says there is a case for developing a 15-kilometre light rail corridor. It's been dubbed Luas by locals. It could cost $1.34 billion or more, but the study believes it could reduce car journeys in Galway City by 10%. Well, Professor of Engineering at Trinity College, Brian Caulfield, says it would be a huge benefit, but he's warning the people of Galway not to set their expectations too highly.
It is definitely a good solution for the city, regardless of what they call it. It says that it could take 10% of cars off the road. It looks at the climate benefits. It looks at the integration it would have right across the city. So on the face of it, it's definitely a very positive project. It's a feasibility study. The people of Lucan would have had a feasibility study about 20 years ago as well. There's nobody from Lucan getting the Luas into Dublin City this morning.
And looking at the weather forecast this morning, any lingering mist patches will clear very shortly. It'll leave a mostly cloudy and mainly dry day with a few spots of light rain or drizzle. Some brighter intervals possible in top temperatures of 13 or 14 degrees Celsius. Mostly light southwest breezes. That's Highland Radio News. We're back with headlines again at 11 o'clock. Check all of the day's news, of course, on the website, highlandradio.com. But for now, from the news team, good morning. The obituary notices for this Thursday morning, the 31st of October. The death has occurred of Bernie Worski, Nate Clancy, Carone Burt, formerly of Hollymount House, Glenboy, Manor Hamilton, County Leitrim. Removal from Murphy's funeral home this afternoon at 2 o'clock, going to the Chapel of Rest, Manor Hamilton, to repose there from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Reposing at her late residence at Carone Burt from 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. Removal from there on Saturday afternoon at 1:15, going to St Angus's Church, Burt, for Requiem Mass at 2 o'clock, followed by interment in Burt Cemetery. The Requiem Mass can be viewed on churchservices.tv. Family time, please, from 11 o'clock on Friday night and before the funeral on Saturday. Family flowers only, please. Donations in lieu if desired to the Donegal Hospice, care of any family member. The death has taken place of Angela Benson, to the Glebe Stranora, formerly of Ballastadair, Sligo. Angela's remains will repose at McGowan's funeral home, Drumbo Avenue, Stranora, this evening from 6 o'clock until Rosary at 9. Removal from there tomorrow morning at 11:15 to arrive at the Church of Mary Immaculate, Stranora, for Requiem Mass at 11 o'clock. Burial afterwards in Drumbo Cemetery. House strictly private, please, at all times. Flowers welcome, donations in lieu if desired to Twin Towns Lost and Found Dogs, care of any family member, or McGowan's funeral home. The Requiem Mass will be streamed live on churchservices.tv. The death has occurred of PJ Gallagher, Mullendrate, Stranora. Remains reposing at McCool's Chapel of Rest, Ballabafay this evening and tomorrow evening from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. with Rosary nightly at 9. Funeral from there on Saturday morning at 10:30 for Requiem Mass in the Church of Mary Immaculate, Stranora at 11 o'clock, followed by interment in Drumbo Cemetery. The Requiem Mass will be streamed live on churchservices.tv. Donations in lieu of flowers if desired directly to the Donegal Hospice, Letterkenny, or care of any family member. The death has taken place of Damien McClay, 2 Tamworth Grove, Newton Kennedy Street, Strabane, formerly of Carlton Drive, Strabane. Reposing at his home. Funeral from there tomorrow morning at 9:30 for Requiem Mass in St Mary's Church, Melmount at 10 o'clock. Interment afterwards in St Patrick's Cemetery, Murlock, Lifford. Family time, please, from 10 o'clock tonight. The Requiem Mass can be viewed live via the parish webcam. The death has taken place of Kevin Faulkner, 1A, Gort Granor Road, Newton Stewart. Kevin's remains are reposing at his late residence. Funeral from there tomorrow morning, leaving at 10:15 for 11 o'clock Requiem Mass in St Eugene's Church, Glenock, with burial afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. Family time, please, from 11 o'clock tonight. The death has taken place of Maria Malloy, Lochfad, Portnew. Her remains will repose at Shevlin's Funeral Home, Sandfield, from 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock this evening. Funeral from there tomorrow morning at 10:30, going to St Connell's Church, Kilclooney, for 11 o'clock Requiem Mass with burial afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. Family flowers only, please. Donations in lieu if desired to the Friends of Letterkenny University Hospital, care of any family member. The death has taken place of Mary Grace Hunn, née Boyle, Hochstadt, Germany, formerly of Dunlow. Funeral will take place in Germany on Friday fortnight, November 15th, with funeral mass at 1 o'clock in Hochstadt, followed by burial in the local cemetery. The death has taken place of Eamon McCarthy, Lucan, County Dublin, formerly of Madden Head. Reposing at Cunningham's Funeral Home, Lucan, tomorrow evening between 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock. Removal on Saturday morning to Newlands Cross Crematorium for a celebration of Eamon's life at 10 o'clock. Eamon's funeral service may be viewed on dctrust.ie. Family flowers only, please. Donations, if desired, to the Irish Lung Fibrosis Association. The death has occurred of Andy Doherty, butcher, Lara Hurl, Cooldaff. Andy's remains are reposing at his home. Funeral from there tomorrow morning at 10:20, going to St Mary's Church, Bocken, for 11 o'clock Requiem Mass, with interment afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. The funeral mass can be viewed live on cooldaffparish.com. Family time, please, from 10 o'clock tonight. Family flowers only, please. Donations, if desired, to the St Mary's Church Bocken Restoration Fund, care of any family member or McFeely Funeral Directors. And the death has taken place of John Joe Doherty, Kinnigo, Buncrana. Funeral from his late residence this afternoon at 12:30, going to St Mary's Church, Cockhill, for 1 o'clock Requiem Mass, with burial in the adjoining cemetery. The funeral mass can be viewed on churchservices.tv. Family flowers only, please. For family information and more details regarding wakes and funerals, please go to highlandradio.com.
Hello, this is your captain speaking from the Red Click control room with an important message. Whether you're tired of jumping through hoops for car insurance or just looking for the best deal in town, remember this. Insurance that's easy, insurance that's quick. Whenever you need us, you just need to click.
For our latest offers, visit redclick.ie. Redclick. Insurance that just clicks.
Generali Seguros y Reyes Seguros SAU, trading as Redclick and Generali, is authorised by the General Directorate of Insurance and Pension Funds in Spain and is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland for conduct of business rules.
You're very welcome back to the 9 Till Noon Show. Hopefully your Halloween is going well and not too spooky for you, unless you want it to be really spooky. Loads coming up on the show, as you can imagine, over the next hour or so. Let's get to some comments, though, to bring us up towards the bingo numbers. And it's jackpot today, so hopefully someone will win big. Can you point out that when the Irish went to other countries, they weren't housed, fed, clothed and put before the country's own citizens? This calling things far right is played out. Change the record if you can't see it. Now you're blind. Well, no, I didn't use the word far right, by the way. I'm not sure that word was used or that phrase was used at all. It is slightly more complex than that, of course, because many of us went abroad and we weren't very welcome in some parts. Some of the Irish that emigrated to Scotland and elsewhere, Birmingham and London, weren't exactly welcomed with open arms. In the American case, many of us had to go over there and work illegally, and also still live over there illegally. So, it's not been all rosy for Irish heading away. And also, too, it's very important to sort of understand what some Americans' view of Irish. For example, J.D. Vance, he blamed immigrants from Ireland for the US crime rate. He talked about when Irish moved to America, there was a rise in crime, You had this massive wave of Irish immigration, Vance said, and that had its problems, its consequences. You had higher crime rates. You had these ethnic enclaves. You had inter-ethnic conflict in the country where you really hadn't had that before. So that's the potentially and likely future Vice President of the United States. That's his view of Irish immigration over the years. It's not this rosy picture where we went out and built nations, which we did. But as I say, that's the views of the soon-to-be potentially Vice President of the United States, that we went over there. Crime rates went up. There was ethnic enclaves, inter-ethnic conflict, the gangs of New York he referenced, and so on and so forth. So as I say, it's not always as rosy history as one might think. If you are free thinkers and don't just take what the media say, you can search and you can read the documents that are published stating that they need a repopulation. Europe, as it is, officially dying. This is deliberate. All this is hurting the vulnerable Irish community along with the vulnerable immigrants. But birth rates at the moment in Ireland and Britain and the United States and China and other countries are running at less than 2. And that's not enough to sustain the population as it ages. So there is I think, is this what you're talking of? There is, the reality is, unless others come in, there's not going to be the people to sustain the generations as they get older. That's not a conspiracy theory or anything, by the way. That's an absolute fact, because our birth rate, there's going to be more older people living than there are younger people to work, pay taxes and care for them, unless we start having more children. Could you please wish, I'll come back to that in a second, it's a comment mixed up with a request. Is calling someone New Irish not controversial as well? See, it's really what we can find insults or offence in every spoken word language if we're looking for it. New Irish? No. I mean, if someone's an immigrant and they are from a different part of the world, it doesn't really matter what colour they are, I'm not referencing that, and then they go through the process and they receive Irish citizenship, I think that's New Irish, because they're newly Irish. I watched the programme last night about the brutality in Irish schools, and it was shocking. This brutality by some teachers was criminal, and the government supported this behaviour. It was the same in our national school in the 1950s, caned every day. And also, I was at a local secondary school in the late 1960s, and pupils' hair just beside their ears were pulled on a regular basis by 2 of our teachers. Now, I've just had to leave that school out because it's very possible those teachers are still alive, and I'm not in any way taken away from your experience. I just have to be a little careful. But unfortunately, over yesterday, and it's starting today as well, some of the stories of corporal punishment in schools in this region, and it's not surprising because it was widespread, absolutely shocking. Greg, that house in Bridgend is lying empty. There's nobody living in it. I live in the area. There could be a couple of them. I don't know. I respect what you say, though. Morning, Greg. I think it's shameful that your caller Emmett has to come on his local radio station begging for help to get accommodation and social welfare. We're housing thousands of asylum seekers and migrants and paying them social welfare, and yet an Irish local man is not being cared for. And he didn't go down that route, but I think many people listening perhaps could have understood if he did, whether they agreed or not. Hi, Greg. I don't agree with pocket money. Back in our day, Grandad always said it was hard work earning your own loaf, but goes a long way. Crusty Kevin in Dunlow. Thanks, Kevin. I mean, I suppose, you use it in our house. You earn your pocket money. It's not sort of just given to you because you're looking up at you with your what do you call that? Sad dog eyes. But yeah, I take your point, Kevin. Thanks for that. Matthew on Facebook. I wonder what you think of this one. Just want to comment in relation to shops selling hen eggs to teenagers on Halloween. Teenagers are using them to throw at cars and house windows. Last year in Ballymacool Estate, 2 teenagers were going around with a crate of eggs targeting house windows. My 2 young sons were playing on their computer in the sitting room when an egg hit the window on the edge of the frame. Had the egg hit the middle of the window, it could have broken it. I went outside and seen them running away and seen neighbours out as they did their houses too. My kids were scared to death for a few days, and there was also elderly people's windows hit, scaring them to death. So could shops please not sell teenagers eggs? They know themselves what they're used for. Parents need to talk to their children because any damage to windows and cars will have to be paid for. Throwing eggs at moving cars can also cause an accident. All right, thanks very much for that. I wonder, are they sourcing these eggs elsewhere? Are shops selling eggs in big numbers to children? Are we telling our children, look, it's not cool to throw eggs at people's houses? It's an absolute mess. And what also happens is people feel that they're personally targeted, and it can cause quite a lot of distress. My daughter doesn't have a medical card because both her and her husband work. They have a young family. She had to attend the doctor. She paid for that appointment and paid for her prescription. She was also advised to go for a scan, which she paid for. The doctor phoned her with the results of the scan, and after that call, she received a text to say she had to pay €30 for that phone call. I just want to know, is this right? Thank you. So I think a lot of that is understandable. She had to pay for a scan. Is that normal? And secondly, is it normal to have to pay to speak to a doctor to read the results of your scan back to you? It's money after money after money, isn't it? I'm not trying to be sarcastic, but tell that man to dress up as and take on the accent of an asylum seeker. Then he'll be housed immediately. I know where you're coming from. Okay. Good morning, Greg. People have blood on their hands. People died needlessly. They didn't have to lock down. They, and even you, Greg, kept saying Sweden was an outlier, yet it turned out everyone else were the outliers. Every country in Europe had a pandemic preparedness plan before COVID. Sweden stuck to theirs. We didn't need to go to jail. Well, the only coverage we did on the Sweden thing, we spoke to people based in Sweden. We spoke to people who said the Sweden approach was right. We spoke to other people that talked of the high mortality rate in Sweden. Life went on, right, but quite a few vulnerable people died as well. There was all sides to it at that time. No one knew what was going on. And I think for the most part, in terms of the general population and the likes of myself, just trying to do the best. Because, it's a tough situation. You've got one group of people saying, if you don't do anything, everyone's going to die. And you have another group of people saying, if you do this stuff, everyone's going to die. And who do you listen to and what do you do? You just try and do your best. Okay, we'll be back with more after the bingo numbers. Good luck if you're playing today.
The county's #1 talk show, the 9 Till Noon Show on Highland Radio.
It's time for Vision Ireland Bingo on Highland Radio.
It's Thursday, the 31st of October, Jackpot Day. You're playing for the jackpot prize of €7,200 on the pink sheet. The reference number is S19. It's game number 44. The jackpot number is number 7. This number can come out in any position from the next 10 numbers drawn. And now, here are your daily numbers. 32, 6, 30, 63, 86, 19, 61, 72, 79, and finally 40. Phone your claim to 9104833 before 8 tonight, leaving your name, contact number and the name of the shop where you purchased your book, and we'll call you back the next working day. Get all your Vision Ireland bingo information at highlandradio.com.
Hello, my name's Enda Walsh, and I'm a dairy farmer from Ormore, County Galway. In Ireland, we're always looking for a better cow. A cow that's healthier, happier and longer lived. A cow that gives us more milk of a higher quality with specific health benefits. A cow that has a lower carbon footprint. We're finding that better cow through our world-leading breeding programs based on years of science and research. I'm speaking on behalf of the National Dairy Council, everyone's dairy.
Brian McCormick Sports and Leisure, your football store. Football boot sale now on. Save up to 40% off. Puma Future 7 boots only $49.99. Save €40. The ground is soft. Try a pair of soft ground football boots. Adidas F50 or Adidas Gloro SG with a fold-over tongue. Score a goal with our new range of football boots in-store and online. bmcsports.ie. Our Christmas club is now open.
Today's show is brought to you by the Waterfront Hotel Dunlow. December 14th, Christmas party night. Drinks reception, 4-course festive dinner and the amazing hard-to-beat band followed by a late-night DJ. Only €45 per person. Limited availability. The Waterfront Hotel Dunlow.
Our next guest is in studio. It's Dr. Paul Grant. Good morning to you, Paul. Thanks for your time.
Morning, Greg.
You're going to have to come a little bit closer to that microphone,
Sure.
Paul, if you don't mind. I beg your pardon.
Is that okay?
Yep, Dr. Grant is a GP and also has hemochromatosis. And we're talking about a free patient information evening with Dr. Grant for patient, family members and members of the public who are interested in finding out more about hemochromatosis, which I am as well. So this is more common in this country than anywhere else in the world. And does it, in layman's terms, mean we overproduce or overstore iron?
Yes, exactly that. It's hemochromatosis. It's an unusual name, strange name, but it's an iron metabolism disorder. Yes, people with hemochromatosis tend to absorb too much iron. Now, we all know we need iron. People with anemia and that would be taking iron supplements, so iron is essential. But in people with hemochromatosis, they tend to absorb too much iron. They don't. They overload with iron, and that too much iron becomes toxic in the system, and causes damage to various different organs and systems within the body.
And we'll talk through that in a second, but just for people listening, I mean, people can live long and healthy lives once, they have the earlier the diagnosis, the better. Absolutely. I'm sure, yeah. But also with treatment. So we have made great advances in that. It's really about getting people with it, knowing they have it, and or the treatment.
Exactly. So it's all about awareness and knowing that to look out for it, to pick it up by a simple blood test at your GPs, and then the treatment is essentially prevents complications. So it's awareness and early diagnosis, which is very important. And as you mentioned, I found out myself just by chance 20 years ago that I had this condition, and luckily I found out at an early age before there was any complications, and then started on the treatment very, very quickly. So it's very simple. You basically have a blood donation, essentially 2 or 3 times a year, and that will prevent any complications.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it, as to how you go about ridding yourself of the excess iron, I suppose you could say. I want to talk about that in a moment, sure. But and we've talked about this as well in the past. It's Ireland's most common genetic disorder, and is more common in Ireland than anywhere else in the world. Has any research been done as to determine why that might be?
Well, it is a genetic condition. It's known as the Celtic curse because of the Celtic nature, the people in this part of the world. It's largely to do with the fact that we are an island nation, and the gene pool is very small. So the gene is passed on from one person to the next and continues down the line, and that's why we have a preponderance of it in Ireland and Wales and Scotland, very high rates. So about 1 in 83 people in Ireland have 2 copies of this defective gene, which means they potentially can go on to develop complications of hemochromatosis. And 1 in 5 people have 1 copy of that gene, which means they're carriers, and they can pass 1 copy on to their offspring. And if the other partner is a carrier, can pass 1 copy on, and then that offspring will have.
And you can see how it perpetuates there, yes, obviously.
Passes through
exactly, right. And on it goes.
Yes.
There's nothing can be done preventatively, is there?
There's no cure, but that's no reason to panic, because it's treatment. It's detection and treatment. And the treatment is simple venesection, which means it's very similar, the very same as going to the blood transfusion service where you donate a unit of blood. Your GP, we do it in Buncrana regularly. I did an audit before I come on the show here. We do about 5 venesections per week, which is quite a large number, and we have about 45 people coming on a regular basis with a diagnosis of hemochromatosis. So you give 1 unit of blood, about 450 mils of blood, and that takes away the iron from your system, and if you give that on a regular basis, it prevents the iron overload. So that prevents complications or damage such as liver disease, diabetes, heart disease, and joint problems.
I can't remember from the last interview I did on this. Can you offload that blood by way of donation to the Irish Blood Transfusion Board?
Well, that's a very good point, and I'm glad you brought that up, because yes is the answer. You can. Okay, now you can. Previously you couldn't, and that was a great shame. When we take the blood in Buncrana in our surgery, we have to incinerate that blood, and we cannot use that blood for donation. But in the last number of years, the Irish Blood Transfusion Service are providing this service now, and they will take blood from people with hemochromatosis, and that blood can be used for donation. So as I say, we take about 5 units of blood every week. That's about 250 a year. If those people attended the blood transfusion service, that blood could be used for donation.
And we know there
emergency.
always is a 2 or 3 day supply of blood, particularly in certain groups. So, I mean, looking at some of the symptoms of it, the early indicators, is where maybe it can be quite complicated, and maybe why you were lucky in stumbling across this by chance. Chronic tiredness, joint pain, abdominal pain, irregular heartbeat. I presume all or some are present. All or some are going to be present in various degrees.
Yeah.
So, as best as you can, what should people be looking out for as positive indicators?
Right. Yeah, the problem is the symptoms you mentioned can be very vague, and that is a problem. Sometimes people are just tired. Maybe they think they're overworking or not getting enough sleep. They're tired. Maybe joint pains. These are common things. It doesn't mean you have hemochromatosis, but they can indicate this. Another thing is people should be very aware nowadays. We're trying to increase the awareness. So if there's a family member with hemochromatosis, you maybe need to go and have this checked yourself. The more complicated or more serious complications, rather, such as liver disease or diabetes, these are late complications, but they do happen, and we do see them.
And we don't. What we're trying to do is here to find out long before your organs are started, because that's becomes far more complicated.
Once damage is done, the treatment with venesection doesn't reverse that damage, but it can prevent it getting worse, or it can prevent damage being done in any case. Yeah.
So, if it's, obviously GPs have to see an awful lot of people, and they are general practitioners as well. So, if you go to your GP, right, and you have some of these symptoms, can you self-advocate? Can you say, listen, could you run a test?
Oh yes, of course. And in particular, if there's a family member or family history of the condition, that would be important to do. And we're quite open to people saying, look, I'm feeling these symptoms, and is there any chance we could do an iron test or a ferritin test, which is one of the specific tests we do. So we do that regularly, and we wouldn't have a problem doing that for patients, because as I say, as we know, it is very common. We like to pick it up early before there's any complications, and treat it. Very happy to treat it in Buncrana or in the blood transfusion service.
Yeah, now this question came in a number of times the last time we talked about this. Recently tested positive for hemochromatosis, but the ferritin tests show normal iron levels. What do you do in that situation? That doesn't seem uncommon, as I say. We've had that a few times when discussing this.
Well, possibly. This person is positive for hemochromatosis, but perhaps they were picked up very early, and the iron levels hadn't accumulated. So usually it's in the 30s in males and in the 40s in females that the iron levels will start to accumulate and start to become toxic levels. So perhaps that person was just picked up at an early stage, which is very good, because we can initiate treatment then and prevent any complications.
So when you offload your blood, I don't know what the proper terminology is, but that'll do. Do you just have a set routine in that now, or do you base it based on sort of iron levels? So do you monitor your iron levels? Or are people's iron levels monitored?
Yeah, people with the condition then will have regular blood tests.
Yes.
To measure the ferritin and the iron stored in the system. Once we know someone has, initially when they're diagnosed, their iron levels will be quite high. So what we do is take regular blood tests, blood venesection, where we take off a unit of blood. We might have to do that every week for up to 10, 12, 14 weeks until we get the levels down to an acceptable level. So we measure a thing called ferritin in the blood, and we like to keep that at a certain level below 100. Then we know we're safe. And once we've initiated treatment and maintaining treatment, then we do regular, every 3 months, 3 to 6 months, we do a blood test to see what their iron levels are. And we would do maybe 2 or 3 venesections per year then to maintain their iron level.
There's a system in place to this is figured out, isn't there? Whereby you go through it, and eventually you go through this stuff, and eventually you find the individual patient's requirements.
Yeah.
A caller says it's a great shame that a lot of our hospitals can't save blood for use. It's a pity too that our blood banks need 90 days between donations, but that wouldn't preclude hemochromatosis patient because the gap would be greater than 90 days.
Yes,
I'd imagine.
Yes, exactly.
Spread relatively even over the 3 years. Is hemochromatosis classed as a disability? Asks another caller.
No, and not that I'm aware. No, I don't think so. No, it's not. No.
Okay.
And as you can see, luckily, 20 years down the line,
You're looking good, Doctor.
I'm not so far not disabled anyway. No.
Right. Okay. I understand where they're coming from too, as well.
Yeah.
So the key thing here is early diagnosis. It's vital because there's a lot of conditions where we don't get any foresight, and then the damage is done, or our lives are shortened, or it impacts our lives. This is an annoyance potentially, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
But with proper management from an early stage, you can go on and live your full healthy life. So again, if someone's listening and they're going, I'm a bit tired lately, or people less likely maybe to spot the irregular heartbeat or the abdominal pain, are they more prevalent like in women and men, or men and women? Do you know how some conditions, women's symptoms can be a little bit different, or vice versa?
Not really. Women, as I say, will develop it later because of periods, etc. They develop iron overload at a later stage than men, but no, the symptoms would be the same. And as we say, unfortunately, they're largely vague at the early stages. So, if in doubt, test for it. In particular, if there is any family history, of course.
What age should my children get tested? Because I have hemochromatosis, which is an interesting question, actually. Because you could test. Can you test too early and then it goes off the radar and is missed?
Well, what we can do is we do the blood test to check for iron. But in someone who's, say, in that case, maybe the parent or a sibling have hemochromatosis, we would do the genetic test, which is a different test, testing for the actual defective gene to see if they have 2 copies of that gene, which means they have a potential for developing iron overload. That won't necessarily, but they have a high potential to do so if you have 2 copies of the gene. So we would, in that case, that caller's case, we would do a genetic test to see. We wouldn't do genetic tests on everyone, but in that case we would.
Yeah, okay, because the family history is there.
History, yeah.
So if a mum or dad's listening and they have hemochromatosis, or particularly if they both had it, and hopefully they'd be aware of it and getting the treatment. I presume most of them are pass that information on to siblings or children, and they're also
all children and siblings would be tested then, as I say, genetic testing. We wouldn't do genetic testing on the general population unless their ferritin levels were high.
Right, okay, so this is all ahead of an event taking place next Wednesday. It's at 7 p.m. at the Clanry Hotel, Letterkenny. It's free, it's in person. Talk to us about what's going to happen.
Yeah, well, I'm going to give a brief slideshow talk about my own experience of hemochromatosis and the general hemochromatosis story, the management, the treatment, the awareness, just to make people aware of what happens if they do come across a diagnosis of hemochromatosis. It's very simple. Nothing to fear. But the important thing is to find out early. So there'll be a talk, and then there will be a question and answer session, and the Irish Hemochromatosis Association will be there as well. So there'll be an exchange of ideas and views, and it'll be a very open night. Hopefully be very enjoyable. Hope all our listeners can come.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. I tested positive for hemochromatosis and my ferritin level is at 100, but my GP's of the opinion that I don't need treatment and I do carry 2 genes.
Well, 100 is the cutoff point. Some people would be stricter and say 50 that should be kept up, but between 50 and 100 is good. That's acceptable. So just monitor in that case, and if the levels go above 100, they should be
it's borderline there because you're setting someone down a path of having to get blood taken 3 times a year here, and that person's right on the tipping point there. So the GP is to balance up the impact on the person versus
exactly. And it's a matter of monitoring. That person will need to be monitored because the levels could climb over time.
Yeah, and I'm sure they will. Is there anything else that's indicative? I suppose too, if it's not picked up early, that's when there's I presume a broad range of symptoms from there on.
Yes, as I say, the vaguer symptoms of fatigue and joint pain is very common as well. But then people later can develop serious liver disorder, diabetes, and heart arrhythmias or irregular beat, which can be very serious.
Yeah, as I say, we've a head start on it.
Absolutely,
so it's just about checking your the stuff we've talked about, i.e. hereditary stuff, genetic stuff, but also then looking out for those symptoms. And I'm sure your GP won't mind running the test for you if they see fit. So it's an open free event. It is next Wednesday at 7 p.m. in the Clanry Hotel, Letterkenny. It's free and in person. Everybody is welcome to attend. You're going to give a presentation and then a Q&A afterwards. But I also think it's a great opportunity maybe for people, affected with a similar condition to mingle and chat and all, because everyone's situation is, fundamentally perhaps the same, but quite different too.
Yeah. I hope that will happen, and there'll be a forum and opportunity for that, yes.
All right, good stuff. I hope there's a big turnout. It's just, we know, unfortunately, there's a lot of people in Ireland with this, and there's a lot of people in Donegal with it. So the people are there. It's whether they want to go out and learn more about it, and I think they'd be well advised to do so. Do you do anything else? Is exercise impactful on this, or is this all internal, or
it's all
diet?
It's all internal. Diet, really. We would recommend people don't take anything with iron supplements, like a lot of the cereals, breakfast cereals will have iron supplements, so we'd recommend you don't do that. Or vitamin C supplements. Vitamin C increases the absorption of iron, so we try and stay away from that. We advise people to take moderate alcohol intake, and then just a general healthy lifestyle.
Moderate sounds okay. That sounds like a green light, doctor.
Moderate. Low or no?
No moderate.
Low
okay.
or no. Yeah.
All right, listen, thanks very much. Just one final recap. Next Wednesday, Clanry Hotel, lovely setting as well. It's at 7 p.m. It's open and it's free, and it's informal by the sounds of things. It's going to be informative and educational, a chance to ask and answer questions. Dr. Paul Grant, thanks for calling down.
Thank you very much.
Really do appreciate
Thank you very
it.
much, and we hope to see
Watch
all
the
your
show live
listeners.
now on YouTube, Facebook, and at highlandradio.com.
Today's show is brought to you by the Waterfront Hotel, Dunlow. December 14th, Christmas party night. Drinks reception, 4-course festive dinner, and the amazing hard-to-beat band, followed by a late-night DJ. Only €45 per person. Limited availability. The Waterfront Hotel, Dunlow.
For the biggest names in perfumes and aftershaves, visit McGee's Chemist Letterkenny. Dior, Armani, and Hugo Boss. Victor and Rolf, Marc Jacobs, and Lancôme. Also Gucci, Yves Saint Laurent, Prada, and many more. From timeless classics to celebrity favourites, there's a perfume or aftershave for everyone at McGee's Chemist Letterkenny and online at mcgees.ie.
Are you paying over the odds for TB testing? In this week's Irish Farmers Journal, we reveal a huge variation in the prices vets are charging for hard tests. Taoiseach to lead Cabinet Committee to defend nitrates derogation. Beef prices reached €6 per kilo as lambs hit €8. Minister could reopen acres for new entrant farmers. We talked to Minister Helen McEntee about the closure of rural Garda stations. And could a new tax regime protect farmland from super rich investors? All inside this week's Irish Farmers Journal, on sale now.
Call of the Wild, Donegal's newest outdoor store, is now open on Main Street, Letterkenny, with the best quality winter jackets, footwear, and everything else you'll need to get outdoors, whatever the weather. Also, a great place to find the perfect Christmas gift. Shop now and you could win back the cost of your purchase. Call of the Wild on Main Street, Letterkenny, also in Sligo and Westport. See callofthewild.ie.
McCullough Jewellers in Letterkenny are synonymous with fine jewellery, quality watches and giftware. With stores at Main Street, Letterkenny and the Letterkenny Shopping Centre, or online at ormccullough.com. You can choose from their quality product range in a relaxed atmosphere, and their sales staff will be happy to help you make the right choice, whatever the occasion. McCullough Jewellers, making moments magical for generations.
Larry Donnelly, lecturer above the bar at the Law Faculty, an Irish-American law attorney, writer and political contributor resident in Ireland. Larry, what's going on?
An awful lot. Look, the polls are very, very close, and I think that people in the U.S. and around the world are waiting for Tuesday with bated breath, depending on what the outcome might be.
I'm not sure if it's algorithms or what have you, but I think Donald Trump seems to be running a better campaign. I think President Joe Biden, in his comments, though, like everything, they're taken almost out of context and amplified. And people can't see the truth, but be that as it may, we had a comedian at a rally in New York that made a joke about Puerto Rico being effectively a garbage island. The Harris campaign were making great inroads on that. Joe Biden in a Zoom call then, you could argue, said that effectively anyone who supports Donald Trump is garbage. He turns up on stage dressed as a bin man. This is where we're at, Larry.
Yeah, it was the raw racism that I think was on stage at Madison Square Garden at the Trump rally was particularly damaging, and still could be particularly damaging, particularly among Latinos who are supporting Trump in big numbers, and who I think one comedian at least went deliberately out of his way to offend in a very profound way. And we've heard from that community in the U.S. saying how aghast they were, including from some people who said it had been their intention to vote for Donald Trump and are now thinking about shifting to the other direction. But coming as it did on the heels of that, when that was really growing legs and gaining a lot of media attention, Biden's comment was a seriously unwelcome distraction from all of that. And it has allowed Trump to cast it in the same light as Hillary Clinton's infamous comment about the deplorables in 2016, and to use it as a rallying cry to his support base, and also that small cadre of people who are still undecided but don't like being talked down to by Democrats. And I think that this has been an advantage for Trump in the waning days. Whether it will cancel out the damage that was done at that Madison Square Garden rally, it's an open question. But these are the things that when this is decided, when the votes have been counted, pundits probably like me will be looking back and saying one or the other was the difference in the election.
Where are we at? It's very hard to read, isn't it? And it's not exactly like we're going to find out the exact situation on polling day itself. It is incredibly tight. What do we need to be looking out for, November 5th and on?
Well, the battleground states, at least, of course, according to the aggregated polling, which, as we know, is not always correct, it's all within the margin of error. At the moment, the 7 states that are often identified, Trump has marginal leads in 5 out of the 7. Harris has marginal leads in 2 out of the 7. What I'd be watching for in terms of 2 states that are kind of out of the battlegrounds, if you were to say they were sort of outliers. So North Carolina would be a real reach for Harris. If Harris is able to win North Carolina, that augurs very well for her chances. On the flip side, Nevada is a real reach for Trump. If Trump wins Nevada, that augurs very well for his chances. At the end of the day, if this thing is that close, in my view, it could well come down to Pennsylvania, where, again, the polls have Trump ahead by a point or maybe even less, where it's all going to come down to voter turnout at the end of the day. The other thing I should say, Greg, is, we're caught up in the dead heat of the moment, but given the nuances of the Electoral College system, this thing could break narrowly, maybe 2 or 3 points here, 2 or 3 points there, narrowly but decisively in the direction of one candidate or another. So even though the popular vote may be close, it could be the case that the Electoral College margin is bigger than we think it could be.
Yeah, and what are the key election points? I'm hearing an awful lot from Trump: immigration and inflation. That seems to be the two he's on. Access to healthcare for women seems to be a big element from Kamala. And I suppose those talking points reach different demographics, don't they, really? And who's going to be most motivated to come out and vote who wasn't picked up by the person with a clipboard?
Yeah, if it does come down to that kind of basic an equation, then you'd have to say Donald Trump has the advantage, because, yes, very many American women are aggrieved and angry at the reversal of Roe versus Wade. But if you look at the data and if you look at the anecdotes, and for instance, the vox pops that we see in newspapers, not just from the US, but here and in the UK, what are the issues that constantly come up with people in the battleground states? They're immigration and inflation. And the people are very angry with the Biden-Harris administration on that front. Trump could capitalize very much on that. And here's where Harris, in terms of as a messenger, as a candidate, in my view, she has not been strong. She has not made any decent arguments on either one of those issues. And it seems that even the most basic question, she seems to circle around and revert to Trump is dangerous without making the case as to why people should vote for her.
And finally, how influential do you think now the effectively the full weight of the X platform being behind Trump is? And influencers, people with influence like Joe Rogan, effectively he would say he's impartial, but look, he's behind Trump as well. That's at least how it seems. But you have Elon Musk right behind Donald Trump, a position for him potentially in a Trump administration. How could that be a difference maker? I would say Elon Musk's ego would have thought that he should have already won it by now, but it's clearly not the case.
No, I mean, and look, yeah, there's no doubt that those people like Musk, and then to a lesser extent Rogan, who have huge platforms, outsized followings, do have disciples, do have people they can manipulate and get to support. They certainly are working on behalf of Trump. I'll give you the opposing argument. The opposing argument is that they are just doing the opposite of what, in the view of people in conservative America, would say is the mainstream media won't give Donald Trump a fair shake. So again, the media landscape in America is less than what we want.
I was watching CNN and they were literally trawling through the archives to find Donald Trump using the word garbage. Firefighting, that's not media in my view, and the journalists sitting there involved in that need to wobble their head. Larry, thank you. I know you're in demand this morning. Take care of yourself. Lovely to chat to you as always.
Thanks, Greg.
Bye-bye. Larry Donnelly there, Irish-American law attorney, writer and political contributor residing in Ireland. I don't know, it's up in the air. What's going to happen? I don't know. I pray our politics here in Ireland never gets to the stage it is in the USA. Well, I'm afraid, I'm not afraid. If that's the way this country wants to go, that's it. But I think we are heading in that direction. Say up to 20,000 people could have it and don't know. That's hematomacrosis. And that's why we're doing the information piece, because it's very manageable if you get treatment. You can avoid the damage to the likes of your kidneys, the risk of diabetes and damage to your heart. So really important if you're in the at risk to definitely get that looked at. Thank you for that, by the way. I started school when I was 60 years ago. I was beaten on the first day and every day after that because I was left-handed. Physical and mental torture. It still affects me to this day. What a way for a child to be treated. What a way for a person to be created to in the formative years. Day one at school. Nowadays, thankfully, for the most part, it's mums and dads sort of at tears at the gates waving them off. Imagine on your first day being beaten because you were left-handed, a kitog. Probably had your left hand tied behind your back too. I wouldn't be surprised. That went on an awful lot. Why do the Irish think they're entitled to houses, etc.? No one is entitled to anything. Some of the Irish that are crying about people coming into this country should get up off their backsides and get a job. I think social welfare should be halved. Okay. That's one person's point of view. Right, we'll be back with more, including more of your comments that are coming in quite thick and fast after these.
Today's show is brought to you by the Waterfront Hotel Dunlow. December 14th, Christmas party night. Drinks reception, 4-course festive dinner, and the amazing Hard to Beat band, followed by a late night DJ. Only €45 per person. Limited availability. The Waterfront Hotel Dunlow.
Join David James as he kicks off the festive season at the launch of Cooney's Christmas Store this Friday in Cooney's Home Interiors. Their Christmas store is bigger and better than ever, with everything you need to make your home merry and bright. The Jive Time will be coming live to you from the store in the Letterkenny Retail Park. Call in and avail of the fantastic offers across their Christmas range this Friday and throughout the weekend.
The Letterkenny Halloween Fest is on Thursday 31st with spectacular fun for all the family. Dress up for the CDP's fancy dress competition and get on the trick-or-treat trail between 1 and 3. There's storytelling, a Halloween Fest parade down Main Street and so much more. All afternoon from 12:30 this Thursday at the Letterkenny Halloween Fest. You dare not miss it. For more info, see Shop LK on Facebook.
From family road trips to weekend getaways. Start your adventures with a new Ford in 2025. The Ford 251 sales event runs from the 1st to the 16th of November. We have incredible savings across our range, with up to €4,000 off the new Kuga plug-in hybrid, plus more savings on the new Puma and the new all-electric Explorer. Ford Options PCP customers also have 0 reasons to miss this event. Discover all our 251 offers at Ford.ie. T's and C's apply. Offer ends November 16th.
Experience total relaxation in the spa at Orchids at the Holyrood Hotel, Bundoran. Recently awarded Best Hotel Spa Getaway at the RSVP Spa Awards. Enjoy luxury spa baths, revitalising facials, rejuvenating massages, pampering body treatments, outdoor hot tub and tranquil Japanese garden. Visit on a luxury spa day, pop in for some me time or buy the perfect present with a gift voucher. Relax and let the spa at Orchids transport you to another world. See holyroodhotel.com.
Highland Radio weather updates with McElhinney's. If you haven't started using the McElhinney's Layaway Club, it's not too late. Spread the cost of Christmas with designer gifts for the whole family. Available by phone or in-store at McElhinney's Ballybuffet.
Mostly cloudy but mainly dry with a few spots of light rain or drizzle and perhaps a few brighter intervals. Temperatures today 13 or 14 degrees. Now returning to an issue we've discussed before, but often we talk about these things around if it's reform of the electoral register, it's often just around about the time of votes taking place. Or in this case, we often talk about this, just around about the time exams are taking place. So no harm getting this out there earlier on in the school year. Rosie Bissett is CEO of Dyslexia Ireland and is with me now. Hi, Rosie.
Hi, Greg. How are you?
I am good. And we're talking about calls from Dyslexia Ireland for extra time in state exams for students with dyslexia. Now, this is, for me, it should be an open door that you're pushing here. It makes absolutely perfect sense. If you give people, if they need a little bit of extra time so that they have an equal chance of achieving what their peers do. Hard to believe we're actually trying to campaign and make this so. But anyway, why is it important, do you believe, for young people or older people with dyslexia to have longer time in state exams?
Well, I suppose the core challenge that many individuals with dyslexia have is processing written language is challenging for them. So it takes them longer to read, to decode text, to perhaps may have to reread it several times to comprehend what we'll say a question is being asked on an exam paper. And then when it comes to writing, there is the processing, getting information from their long-term memory, through that muscle memory, through to handwriting, through to spelling accuracy. And many of those steps are slower and less fluent for individuals with dyslexia. So obviously a timed exam like our Junior Cert and Leaving Cert June exams really are probably one of the most stressful situations that an individual with dyslexia is ever going to be placed under.
I mean, we can go back 16 years. The State Examinations Commission received advice from its own experts stating such that more time should be given to those with dyslexia.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose this is just, honestly, sometimes I feel like it's Groundhog Day. I'm having the same conversations, talking about the same issues, for so many years now at this stage. And essentially we have just huge resistance from a state body, which despite its own expert advisory group recommending that students with dyslexia and other additional needs should have additional time, nothing has been done about it, as you say, so many years later.
Because I think they might know it's the right thing to do, but they don't want the hassle of trying to make it so.
I think there's obviously there's a fear. Many people have fear of change. Okay, certainly that's we know that as human beings, unfortunately. Yes, there will be a piece of work involved in it, but it's a piece of work that absolutely needs to be done and should be done. Extra time is common, a best practice, almost the first additional accommodation that is provided in all jurisdictions. And ironically, if our students manage to get through our Leaving Cert system, if they go into college and they walk into ATU if they walk into college in Letterkenny or Dublin or wherever, one of the first things that a student with additional needs will be offered is additional time in exams. So it's such a huge anomaly and outlier, and really it's not good enough in 2024 that we're still
and these are victims of the system we've set up, whereby so much of a person's future, at least it can feel like that at the time, is determined by a series of exams over 2 weeks. We've created this. Now, I know there is there are some variances in that, but basically it's still the same. So there is a review ongoing, though. It's going to take a while. Everything does. All reviews do take a while. And I do feel if eventually they do come up with the obvious correct decision, I do feel for the students over the next 2, 3, maybe 4 years that don't have this, I was going to call it an advantage, but don't have this levelling of the playing field.
Exactly. It's not an advantage. It's leveling the playing field. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, yes, reviews take time, but at the same time, this is this is such a no-brainer of an issue, given that there's already been a review and an advisory, an expert group that has recommended this. Frankly, a timeline of 2 to 3 years is it's just not good enough, and we shouldn't be seeing, as you say, how many more generations, tens of thousands of young people struggling in their exams, and then how many more Junes, do they have to go through that?
Yeah. Rosie, listen, thanks for your time. Take care of yourself. That's Rosie Bissett, CEO of Dyslexia Ireland. If you agree that more time, or disagree, that more time should be given for people with dyslexia for state exams, let me know. 086 60 25,000.
Today's show is brought to you by the Waterfront Hotel Dunlow. December 14th, Christmas party night. Drinks reception, 4-course festive dinner, and the amazing Hard to Beat band, followed by a late night DJ. Only €45 per person. Limited availability. The Waterfront Hotel Dunlow.
Donegal Tile Centre have a mega Halloween sale now on, with huge discounts throughout the store. There's wall and floor tiles from as little as €7.95 a square yard. Vanity units from just €180. Freestanding baths reduced to €799. Also massive discounts of mirrors and accessories. So make your way to Rossview Business Park, Letterkenny, just off the Polestar roundabout, and pick up a real bargain.
Looking for your number one stop shop that's got it all? Then make John McNulty's convenience store and top oil service station in Stranraer, Donegal your number one destination. Whether you're topping up on petrol or diesel, stocking up on solid fuel, or grabbing a delicious bite from their hot deli, John McNulty's has everything you need. Convenience, quality and service, all in one place. Because at John McNulty's, they put you first. Visit John McNulty's today, your number one choice.
Inside every bag of Gyprock Skim Coat, you would normally expect to find the finest quality Irish-made finish plaster. But for a limited time only, you could also discover a golden trowel worth €10,000 along with other cash prizes. Wouldn't that be grand? So grab a bag of Gyprock Skim Coat today, find the trowel and answer a question. Terms and conditions apply. Gyprock Skim Coat. We value our plasterers. For more information, visit www.gyprock.ie.
The Highland Radio Christmas Concert Countdown is on. Join us for our star-studded show on Monday the 9th of December in the Mount Errigal Hotel, Letterkenny, featuring Mike Denver and his band, John McNichol, Jim Devine, Owen Mack, Donna Taggart and our very own David James. Kick off the holiday season the Highland Radio way on what promises to be a fantastic night. Tickets are just €27.50 each, with a package deal available including dinner, bed and breakfast and entry to the show. For more details, log on to The Outlet at highlandradio.com or call us today on 074 91 25,000.
With all the stories that matter across the Northwest, it's Greg Hughes on the 9 to Noon Show on Highland Radio.
It is 11 o'clock. Let's get a news update and we cross over to Donald Kavanagh.
Thank you, Greg. Good morning. A Garda appeal for information after a man entered the sea in Northern Inishowen earlier this month has been withdrawn following the discovery of a body off the coast of Scotland a week ago. The man, who was in his 70s, was seen entering the water at Lagacurry Beach out of Dode Clonmany on Saturday, October 5th. Gardaí say following the formal identification of the body discovered off the Scottish coast, their appeal has now been withdrawn. The families of those who died in the Creasle explosion say a public inquiry needs to be established even if the Garda investigation is ongoing. They've been told that probe will be completed early next year. Representatives for the families say they do feel a step closer to a conclusion after meeting with the Justice Minister at government buildings last evening. Police in Derry have arrested a man and seized suspected Class A, B and C drugs following a search at a property in Ballygrole Road yesterday. Quantities of suspected cocaine, cannabis, diazepam and pregabalin were recovered with an estimated street value of £34,000 sterling. The former chair of Fine Gael in Letterkenny has resigned from the party and says he will contest the forthcoming general election as an independent. Frank O'Donnell told Highland Radio News he's become disillusioned after raising a number of concerns about issues in Donegal with Party HQ and not getting a satisfactory response. He says he doesn't want to pass any comment on Fine Gael or any other candidate, but says he believes he can be a strong voice for Donegal. The number of people who have died in flash floods in southern Spain has risen to 95. Rescue teams are working to find those feared missing. The number is expected to rise further. Spain's King Philippe has warned there has been enormous destruction to infrastructure, and as a result, some communities are harder to access. And the people of Galway are being advised not to get too excited about the prospect of a new light rail system for the city. A feasibility study from the National Transport Authority found a 15-kilometre tram system could cut the number of cars on the road by 10%. However, the estimated cost of €1.34 billion is already rising as a result of inflation. And at the moment, a professor of engineering says the so-called Lewis is just a pipe dream. And we're back with news headlines again at 12 noon.
Donald, thank you very much indeed.
Welcome to foodie season, with Aldi offers like fresh red Gala apples was $1.59, now 99 cent, for the crumbliest apple crumble ever. Apple crumble, tummy rumble. Oh, and what are you doing to me? Delicious microwavable baby potatoes, now only 69 cent. Dessert before the spuds? I'm into it. Make every day delicious with unmissable Super 6 offers on fruit and veg. Go all Aldi.
Okay, just to let you know, Lunchtime Lives from Highland Radio continue today. It is back. We're coming to you live on Facebook from Toys at Foy's in Ballybofey. Timing, perfect there. And it is the perfect time to talk all things toys, and we'll be exploring the latest and greatest this Christmas from popular toys for all ages, and we'll show you what's hot on Santa's list this year, and we want you to get involved as always. So feel free to send us your questions during the Facebook Live, and they'll be answered there and then. So don't miss it. It's at 1 p.m. coming live on Facebook. That's the Highland Hub Facebook page, by the way, specifically that one. It's coming to you live from Toys at Foy's in Ballybofey. Rightio, Dr. Kenneth Monaghan is a leading expert in stroke recovery and author of Lights, Mirror, Action, a guide to transforming the lives of caregivers and stroke survivors. He's with me now alongside PJ. We'll get to PJ in a moment, but I'll start with you if that's okay. Dr. Monaghan, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much for having us on the show.
Great. We're speaking to you ahead of an event that's taking place in the ATU Sligo, that's the Atlantic Technological University. It's a conference on stroke and neurological health. It's on November 4th, which is, in fact, a couple of days away. What day of the week is that? Sorry, I don't have it here in my notes.
No, you're fine. It's on Monday.
Monday, okay, good stuff.
So I think actually we probably told you it's on from 2 to 5, but actually I think the schedule is we're probably starting closer to 1 o'clock now, and maybe 1 to 4 or whatever.
Well, you need to tell people it's starting at 12 if you want people there at 1 in this country. Yeah. But it kicks off from 1. A central focus of your work is mirror therapy. Now, I've done a lot of interviews on a lot of stuff, and I don't seem to recall hearing about this before. Kenneth, tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so mirror therapy is a therapy that we've been advancing over the last 12 years in our research group in Atlantic Technological University. And imagine you put your hands in front of you, right? Imagine you actually lost the power of your left hand and your fingers because you had a stroke. So if you put your two hands in front of you on the desk in front of you, and you imagine that I put a mirror standing vertical, but we turn it sideways so that the reflective side of the mirror is actually facing the hand that's good, that's not weak. So imagine it was your left hand that was weak. And then the non-reflective side of the mirror faces the weaker hand. If you tilt your head, you can look around the mirror and you look at the image in the mirror, you'll see a reflection of your good hand. But actually, after a very short space of time, your brain actually will think that image is your left hand. It kind of fools or tricks the brain a little bit. But what happens is when you move the right hand and you're watching the image of the left hand, it sends visual feedback or information up to your brain, and it desensitizes the brain. It causes new pathways to form and increases your chances of creating neuroplasticity. And for some people, it has completely cured the problem after a stroke.
It is. It's amazing in terms of, well, I won't say it because I don't want to be inaccurate, but there are other things that happen to people like sight loss, for an example, where the brain can sort of rewire itself a little bit to accommodate that, right? So we're really effectively jump-starting the brain, tricking it to say, right, okay, I need to do something about this, which is actually, it's simple, but obviously it's so bloody complex at the same time because it's involving our brain.
Yeah. So look, there's a lot of myths. When people have a stroke, like PJ here beside me, a lot of people think that, if you don't get your recovery 6 to 9 months afterwards, then you're finished. That's it. And that's completely untrue, because a lot of the scanners nowadays allows us to see that your brain is actually changing every second of every day. So your brain is changing as you're talking to us, and our brains are changing. And so you can get a recovery. You can get recovery after a stroke at any stage afterwards. But a lot of people don't know that, and they don't have the confidence to realize that. A lot of patients are looking for, the golden ticket therapy that's going to get them better. Isn't that right?
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, there isn't such a thing. But what there is there are about 30 different therapies that are available, which are safe to use and which have, evidence behind them that they could help you in some way. And
but
really
also can be used and progressed in your own home environment, some of them, such as, I presume, mirror therapy. And I've spoken to amputees in the past, or one in particular, who talked of having a pain in his foot that was no longer there, or itching, or an itchy calf. Can't stop scratching this itch on my calf, and the calf wasn't there. Now, this guy was a great guy. He was able to make fun of it and all that type of stuff. But it is quite an annoyance and for people as well. Mirror therapy can help in that regard, or at least in that space, can it? How does that work? Same principle?
Yeah, you're perfectly correct, actually. And I probably should have said this, and so thank you for saying it. Mirror therapy initially was developed for a thing called phantom limb pain. So if you lost your hand in the morning time, God forbid, there's a 98% chance that you'll have this phantom limb pain that you described in your friend. So this Indian researcher was the first person to figure out that if you cover the limb that isn't there, so the person can't see it, and you do the reflective things that we talked about a few minutes ago, the information that's going up to the brain, it desensitizes it. And it was almost an immediate cure for that. So, of course, what's happened over the last 20 years is that people have applied this to stroke patients because, again, you can't move the hand. And it's been shown brilliant potential. But for phantom limb pain, like you said, it has been fantastic. It's like a miracle cure altogether.
All right, PJ, good morning to you. How are you keeping?
Good, Ken. Good. Great.
Lovely to speak to you. Right, so you are a stroke survivor, is that correct?
Yes.
And you tried mirror therapy and very quickly had a positive impact on you. Now, this is not going to be the case for everyone, of course, but PJ, talk to me about it. What were your symptoms and what did you see improve?
Well, I had a stroke in 2016 and I was getting physio afterwards in Sligo Hospital. And after a couple of sessions, I was told mine wasn't muscular. And I was asked would I take part in trials in the IT at that time, headed by Kenneth, Dr. Kenneth. And I said, yeah, try anything. So I went there and they tested my strength prior to everything. And I couldn't have anything done for 6 months that time, which has all changed now. You're told now to get it immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So these students came to my house, came with 2 mirrors, one for the leg and one for the hand, put a mirror on the table, but your bad hand, which was my left side, I'm left-handed, so does my good. So I put a mirror, and they had an apparatus that they strapped your hand into. And this was invented by Kenneth, strength training. And they done countdowns. You stare at the mirror, and the reflection then is telling you that your left hand is moving. Now, I couldn't move any of my fingers on the left side.
So then this must work whereby you attempt to make the movement with your left hand, but actually make it with your right hand, and you are looking down, and your brain thinks it's achieving what you're asking the left hand to do. I presume that's what's happening here, is it?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, but after about 3 sessions, I could move my fingers.
Unbelievable.
Now I had no movement in them, and it developed from there. Then about 6 to 8 weeks, I got back to about 90%. And there was no help that time. There was no book to read. Like now, we have the Kenneth's book, which is a fabulous book.
And is it the same principle for your leg then? I mean, did you manage to?
Same thing.
Did power recover to the same extent?
It did, yeah.
Wow. And now that, but now you're do you have, obviously you probably never have the same mobility you have before, but your mobility and ability is very close to where it was once?
Oh, it is, yeah.
Wow,
I try not to notice the difference. It's just because I am left-handed, so
yes,
everything has to be done with the left hand.
yeah. But you can endure that, can't you, given what you've been given back?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Dr. Monaghan, what is I mean, obviously PJ's is an amazing story, okay, and just want to manage people's expectations as well. So are there different types of strokes where this is beneficial, and also can everyone expect some level of improvement, or what's the breakdown there, as much as we know? Anecdotal, maybe, perhaps, I don't know.
Yeah, well, look for a start, nobody knows if a particular type of stroke is better for mirror therapy to work with or not. So every person who's had a stroke, so 85% of people who have a stroke, it's because they get a clot in their brain and it cuts off oxygen to the brain. And the other 15%, it's because they have a bleed, subarachnoid hemorrhage. And so patients that we've had from our trials, who've had both of those types of strokes, all of them have shown some benefit from using mirror therapy. Now, PJ, you're right. PJ got a brilliant recovery, but there's another very important factor here, is that PJ is a very highly motivated person. So, you can give me Rory Gallagher's guitar and I don't know how to play it. It's a bit the same. If you give somebody the therapy and they don't have the motivation and their, the belief that they can kind of improve themselves, and do those endless therapy exercises. Because nowadays what the stroke associations are recommending is that, you do loads and loads, up to even 3 hours a day of therapy. And that's not going to cause you to have another stroke. It's going to allow you to have the best chance of a rebuild. So some people in our trials, some people get very small, maybe 5% improvements, 10%. PJ's was a very, very good example of it, but the important
so
thing
you seem to be saying, or either indicating or saying directly, you really need to commit to this. You can't just sort of go, right, I'm squeezing my hand, I'm looking at the mirror. You have to say, right, brain, not quite literally maybe, you have to say, right, let's focus. This is what I'm going to be thinking about for the next however long you might be in that session.
It is. It's it's again how you motivate people. So it's the principles that we're talking about here are the same principles for sports performance and business performance. I'm sure Jimmy McGuinness uses these principles to motivate his players. How you motivate people, and the starting point is that you have to give people confidence. So if you're sitting in a rehabilitation hospital and it's a week before you go home, and if you're thinking in your mind that first of all, you can't recover anymore when you go home. Second, that your home isn't a good place to do your rehabilitation, or that your caregivers, because they're not physiotherapists, aren't good people to supervise you, then all of that's rubbish. Because all of the good research nowadays is showing that, neuroplasticity can take place at any time. Your home has brilliant advantages for you. Actually, there's a professor in Trinity College, Ian Robertson, who gave me a great endorsement for the book. But in one of his books, he tells us that when you're in your own home, your body creates substantially more testosterone, that hormone that helps you to rebuild and kind of strengthen up your brain cells and things. So, and people don't realize this. They don't realize that when you're in your own home, you have fantastic advantages that you just underestimate. And your caregiver is the same thing. So your your husband or your wife or your family member, they actually have traits and talents that help you to recover that you think aren't possible. Simply explaining things to people, simply supervising, recording what they're doing, encouraging them. All of those things are brilliant for motivating. So,
are you, Kenneth? I mean, listen, all GPs are different, right? But sometimes they can be very clinical. Do you know what I mean? They can sort of it's what they were taught. They kind of stick to that and what have you. Some, not all, of course. Are you seen as an outlier in this area of work, or is there a broad recognition that mirror therapy does work and is advantageous? I'm just thinking now if someone needs to go and have to make the argument to try this or explore this, or
well, I wouldn't like people to come away. I'd like people to, listening to this, to think that, okay, there's a therapy out there called mirror therapy that definitely is worth trying if you've had a stroke. because it's very cost effective. You can buy a mirror for 10 or 15 euros and you can use it in your own home once you have the guidance. And of course, I have a chapter in the book that explains to you how to get started. But I would also like them to realize that there are other therapies that are out there as well that should also be tried. There's a very interesting therapy, Greg, just to say that there's a therapy called cross-education of strengthening, and PJ actually alluded to it earlier on. But imagine I said to you to go to the gym for 6 weeks and just strengthen the right side of your body, right? Now, you'd never do that in practice, but imagine I said to you do that. Well, after 6 weeks, the right side of your body is going to be much stronger, of course. But amazingly, if you measure the left-hand side, it can be up to 40% stronger, even though you haven't done anything. And you see, it's because the electricity or the neural stimulation is going between both sides of the brain, but we don't realize it. And that would have brilliant potential for a stroke patient as well. And you see, buying a very simple resistance band can allow people to do those kind of exercises. But what we've specialized in our research group in Atlantic Technological University is we combine these things, and we do clinical trials to show that, you know, when you combine them, you can kind of sometimes even get better results. But the goal of the book was very much, because I'd heard this from hundreds of patients. I'd heard caregivers say to me and stroke survivors saying, look, when I go home, there's a black cloud over me. I feel that's it. I'm done. And
you're sitting around to your next session out of the house, or you just you want
What's
to
that now?
you're sitting around for the next session out of the house or something. You want to feel that you're progressing at home. Go on. Did you want to come in there? Did you want to come in there, PJ?
Yeah, well, I done plenty of therapy and, you know, everything, possible exercises that I could do, kept doing them and still do them. Because you can't sit down and stop.
Yeah.
You must keep going. And that book is a tremendous book. Like, I've read parts of it a few times. But like, I mean, even to read that book, you can pass on tips to other people with problems. It's a fabulous book.
Right, we're going to have to get the name of it. What is the book called, Kenneth?
It's called Lights, Mirrors, Action. So it's a little bit of a play on the lights, cameras, action. It's a guide for transforming the lives of caregivers and stroke survivors.
And bringing hope as well, too. And not false hope either, actual hope that we can do this together. I'm your carer, you're the stroke survivor. We at home can make inroads. Would mirror therapy work for someone whose cerebellum has not matured and has no balance?
It's probably not the therapy that would work specifically for that kind of deficit. But at the same time, people can try these things, and they've been proven to be safe. So you can try these things.
Well, at some point, someone said, this is helping alleviate pain and treat phantom limb pain in amputees. Can it work for stroke victims?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
what's happening in medicine, what I see over the next 20 years, we're trying to encourage people to become more active in choosing and being involved in their treatments. And this is a very good example of it, because medicine is very passive. You know, we kind of, when we go to the doctor, you know, we kind of sit there and wait to be told what they want us to do. And we kind of nearly feel afraid. I saw this myself recently. I went to an orthopedic surgeon about my hip, and I kind of was a bit paralyzed to kind of say or even suggest what I think I should do, even though I know the exercises. And I think a lot of patients traditionally do that. But what the really good research now is saying that is if you get actively involved, Greg, in your therapy, you know, and you try things out and you decide which works really well for you and which doesn't, you're going to do 10 times better with those therapies, because you feel like there's a bit of control given back to you. So the big message here is, you know, there's lots of different therapies, and I've made a suggestion of a number of them that we use and that can be done cost effectively, but they're not the only ones.
Yeah.
There's lots of them, and people should try as many therapies as possible that they can in their own homes. And then if you have the motivation to kind of keep doing the exercise and do it on a regular basis, and you have somebody to help you who will kind of record what you're doing and prove to you you're making progress, this is another thing.
Yeah, we do need that. We do need that sense that it's made a difference, don't we? Yeah. PJ, listen, thanks so much for joining us, and I'm delighted that you're in good health, and it's great to sort of get a person who's gone through this is their experience is what I'm trying to say. So thanks for that, PJ.
Thank you, Greg.
Brilliant stuff. And more on this in Dr. Kenneth's book, Lights, Mirror, Action, a guide to transforming the lives of caregivers and stroke survivors, and also a conference on stroke and neurological health on November 4th. That's Monday in the ATU Sligo. Kicks off at 1 and runs, for 3 hours?
Yeah, it is. And you look at, I'm talking about my book, but let's be honest, there's a lot of brilliant charities and organisations like the Irish Heart Foundation, CRE, Acquired Brain Injury Ireland. They do tremendous work, and they're there for support to help people as well. And those groups are coming in. They're going to tell people, where they're available, what kind of benefits they have for people, and people should avail of all of those things as well, because the Northwest is actually very unique to have so many different organisations in it. For that small part of Ireland,
Well, that's because we're trying to fill the gaps that are void from the HSE to some extent. Gentlemen, but that's my comment. I'm not attributing that to either PJ or Kenneth. Okay. Continue good health. Continue good health, PJ. Lovely to see you. Lovely to chat to you.
Thank you, Greg.
It's fascinating. And mine's blown on this one. And thanks, Dr. Kenneth Monaghan. Really interesting. Great
thank
stuff.
You very much.
All right, bye-bye. Take care of yourselves.
Bye-bye.
All right. Kenneth and PJ there. Mirror therapy. If any of you out there tried that, because I've talked about stroke and other neurological issues and stuff in the past, and it's never popped up. At least I don't recall it has. But it sounds fascinating. Not going to be for everyone, not going to work for everyone, every condition, but the brain is incredibly powerful, and you can trick it, you can rewire it, you can trigger that rewiring. And it seems to be what mirror therapy has been and hopefully will continue to do for people who've had a stroke.
Today's show is brought to you by the Waterfront Hotel Dunlow. December 14th, Christmas party night. Drinks reception, 4-course festive dinner, and the amazing Hard to Beat band, followed by a late night DJ. Only €45 per person. Limited availability. The Waterfront Hotel Dunlow.
Do you need a UK address? Save hundreds of euros on custom charges shopping online with Space Hub Dairy. We provide a full virtual address mailbox service for all your business and personal use. Save hundreds, possibly thousands, on custom charges with Space Hub Dairy. Call 048 7187 8077 for more details.
It's colourless, it's odorless, it's hard to detect. So carbon monoxide deserves your respect. It can kill you stone dead in just 3 minutes flat. And if you don't believe me, ask me dear Uncle Pat. Thanking you. Coal, turf, oil, gas, even wood, any fuel can harm. So get yourself a carbon monoxide alarm, or you might just wake up dead.
Heron Auto Donegal Town is offering a €5,000 scrappage sale on all 241 Opel and Kia cars. The deal includes models like the Opel Corsa, Astra, Mokka, Crossland and Kia Ceed, Nero, Exceed and Sportage. Available in both automatic and manual options. Call in to Heron Auto today. Now might be a great time to take advantage of this €5,000 scrappage deal. Finance available on all cars, so call to Heron Auto Donegal Town today.
Enjoy real savings this week at SuperValue. Like SuperValue Fresh Irish Fillet Steak, now save 33%. SuperValue Fresh Irish Eye of the Round, now save 33%. Scan your card or app and get Andrex 24 roll, now €8. And 19 Crimes Wine Case Deal, now €50. Make real savings every week at SuperValue. Enjoy alcohol responsibly. Customer quotas apply.
Highland Radio Time Checks brought to you by EirGrid, the operator and developer of Ireland's electricity grid. EirGrid, powering up communities, powering up Ireland. The time is...
It is 11:25. I don't necessarily have to tell you listening because it is a lived reality. In Donegal, some families are paying up to €235 per week for one child in full-time childcare. So that is, for many, more than a mortgage, a car. And that's simply just to facilitate often one or both parents getting out to work. Donal Swans, the National Women's Council's Economic Equality Coordinator, and joins us on the programme now. Good morning to you. Thanks for your time, Donal.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So what is it, like, if you're paying €235 per week, because there are schemes for early childcare and all that kind of stuff, right? So what is the likely scenario for someone paying €235 per week? You know, how many hours a day and what type of setting?
That's likely to be that's full-time daycare, so I suppose 40 hours a week. And there are, as you say, and there have been government, the subsidy has been increased, the National Childcare Scheme, over the last couple of years, and that will have gone down somewhat. That's the most recent data we have. But regardless of even if that's gone down somewhat, as you say, it's a mortgage for many people. It's an second mortgage for many people, and that's for one child. If you have more than one child, you're talking another mortgage on top of that. So it's really, really unaffordable for people right across the country, and certainly in Donegal.
I mean, whatever, particularly for a single person or even for both, there's not many jobs in this county or even this part of the world whereby you have a spare €235 just to allow you to get out to work and earn money to pay your bills.
Absolutely, and I think what we're seeing more and more is instances where it just doesn't make sense for families, for two-parent families, to have two people in the workforce, and that means that someone's going to stay at home, and that person is more than likely in most couples going to be a woman, and that feeds into I suppose a broader trend that we have of the fact that about women do about twice as much caring work in the home as men, and that feeds into the gender pay gap. It feeds into women's lower wealth and lower incomes, and it's not just about employment. It's about access to community life, to cultural life, to social life, and lack of access to early childhood care and education and care really impacts women, and it's a real gender equality measure.
But also
because of
too,
that.
you would see it as sort of counterintuitive to the economy, because obviously you don't have another person out contributing. You don't have their skill set out in the workforce, which can obviously improve our country's offering for investment and all that type of stuff. Like, it is, I'm not sure if it's cost neutral or what it might be, but if people can get affordable, if not free, childcare and can get out working, it benefits the state. It's better.
Absolutely, it benefits us all in the long run. It benefits our employment stats. As you say, engagement in the workforce. We're already at full employment. So there's lots of places that are crying out for jobs. But also it's a huge investment in our children too. It's really been shown how much high quality education and care can really lead to better social outcomes for children as well down the road. So at a whole range of levels, it's a really good investment for the state, for society, and for everyone in it.
Now, obviously, we're coming into an election now. There is an e-action campaign. If effectively you agree with Donal and the National Women's Council, nwc.ie, and there is you can fill out a form there effectively to back this campaign. It's an email action. It provides an easy to use online tool for families, parents and individuals across Ireland to demand better childcare solutions through a simple collective action. Right. So I've heard some politicians floating the notion of childcare being provided by the state. What does that look like? Does that mean it's free? And then also, what happens to all the childcare providers out there who are private businesses and albeit at a high cost because they have to pay wages of highly qualified people, but not great profit. They're currently doing that. So do they get supported and stay in business?
I think there's a lot of strands to this, and there's a lot of strands to what we're calling for in terms of the public system for of early childhood education and care. And I suppose the first thing to say is that no significant structural reform happens overnight. There'd have to be some kind of transition. But really what we're calling for is two things. So first of all, we're calling for the state to have a much greater role in providing childcare directly. So that's rolling out state-provided childcare in areas particularly that are underserved, where they don't have the private provision, where the waiting lists are
everywhere it's
very
underserved.
high.
There's waiting lists everywhere, I think, Donal. But I mean, what does that mean then? You have the state in there competing with private childcare providers who would say themselves, a lot of them are exiting because there's no money in it. So are you not disadvantaging them?
Well, I think the other thing that has to happen is the state has to continue to support private provision, because private provision is the backbone of all early childhood education and care that's being provided at the moment. We couldn't operate without private provision. And I think increasing the state investment, and that's through, subsidy schemes like the National Childcare Scheme and core funding. But also that has to be done in a way that ensures value for public money, that keeps fees affordable while at the same time supporting providers and ensuring that educators are well paid.
Yeah, I'm not detracting from it, don't get me wrong, right? But I mean, the way it looks like to me, if the government entered this market, I can tell you right now, the highly qualified people that are working in childcare aren't going to be working for the state at the same rate they're working in the private sector. That puts extra pressure surely then on the private sector, who are actually holding the whole show up at the moment, to increase wages. And in doing so, obviously, they're not going to be fit to absorb those costs, but the prices could go up for some. Like we could end up, could we not, with a 2-tier childcare system? That's not advantageous.
Well, to be honest with you, the current system that we have at the moment, and I think it's one thing that everyone agrees on, private providers, parents, the state, and certainly ourselves agree that the current system isn't working. So just putting more and more money into the current system isn't going to fix things. So we need to talk about some degree of reform. But yes, there will be a balance that has to be struck. And I think there is that element where the state can initially focus on areas that just aren't viable, that communities that just aren't viable for private provision, because they're really the areas that need it the most. But there is the sense that at the end of the day, what we really want is a guaranteed place for every child across the country. How that transition works between the public and private is going to be complicated, and is going to take time. And private provision will need to be supported. But we think that the best way at the end of the day is moving away from a for-profit system and moving towards one that's kind of like our primary school system. Our primary school system didn't develop overnight either, but that's really where we want to
right,
get
okay.
to.
Now, you've mentioned early childcare. One of the biggest gaps there is for parents, working parents, is after-school care, because they work 5 till 6. The kids are out at 3 or 4, right? And that's even rarer, I think, than childcare places for early childcare. You believe the state should be provided, and what, in schools, or where would this after school care come from?
Absolutely, I think school-aged childcare has to be a big part of it too, and I think there are a lot of opportunities there in terms of using existing facilities, whether they be, as you say, whether they be schools, whether they be community centres, whether they be other both community and state buildings, I suppose, across the country. What's really important is that in building a public system is that we allow for the flexibility that a wide range of different families actually need. And some of that is to do with, say, time of day that people are working. Shift workers who aren't working the regular, 9 to 5 will need different arrangements in certain areas. And as you say, current provision that requires kids to be picked up at 2:30 or 3 just isn't viable for a lot of parents who are working beyond that. So there definitely needs to be wraparound care, and it needs to be available to all different types of family working patterns.
All right, thanks very much for your time. I do appreciate it. That's Donal Swan, Women's Economic Equality Coordinator. I don't like. We were talking earlier on about, the low reproduction rates in this country, and it's not just this country, it's around the world. If there was proper childcare, would that mean more people might have more children because they don't feel they have to choose the career of children? I don't know. Maybe that could also help that problem. A caller says, what about the family? You are not mentioning the mothers staying at home to raise the family. Well, that was mentioned, and it should be a choice. I applaud any mum or dad, for that matter, many of us dads did it as well, that stay at home to look after the children. That's fine. But if you also are doing it because you are highly skilled or you want to be out in the workforce, the conversation was about giving you the opportunity to do that. The role of a mum or a dad actually at home raising a family, vitally important. And for some, that's the choice. Some make that choice if the one partner has the income that can sustain that. Hi, Greg. I believe more time should be given re-exams. Everyone deserves fair play. That comes in from Michael. Yeah, I think most people might agree, Michael. I am a female who has hemochromatosis and was diagnosed in my early 40s, so women should not put off testing even before menopause. My condition is managed with venesections and blood tests. However, I still have a lot of fatigue and joint pain, especially in the knees, fingers and ankles. Right. On the issue of children throwing eggs, I live in Kilmacrennan, and children are kicking footballs through windows and smashing them. I blame the parents as they have no control over the children. It's happening again and again. Okay. And lastly, just before this break, morning, Greg, Vinny and Marty from V&M Podcast here. We just wanted to thank absolutely everyone for donating and tuning into our 24-hour live fundraiser for We Ruby Houston. We raise loads, and sometimes we don't think people realise how good of a community we live in. The support shown towards that family at this tough time is just incredible. Makes you proud to be from where you are. And just a massive thank you to yourself and Highland for sharing and plugging our fundraiser. Highland's a massive part of the community and never fails to show it. Thank you. My pleasure. P.S. Happy Halloween, Greg. We're watching you on YouTube, so can you please take off that mask? You wouldn't want to see what's underneath, is all I can say.
Today's show is brought to you by the Waterfront Hotel Dunlow. December 14th, Christmas party night. Drinks reception, 4-course festive dinner, and the amazing hard-to-beat band, followed by a late-night DJ. Only €45 per person. Limited availability. The Waterfront Hotel Dunlow.
Running a business is never easy. That's why the National Enterprise Hub is focused on helping businesses access a wide range of government supports. We spoke to Conor O'Donovan, the head of the National Enterprise Hub, about the new free service.
The National Enterprise Hub was launched earlier this year by Minister Peter Burke, and it's supported by the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment and operated by Enterprise Ireland. So we've brought together 24 different departments and government agencies with 230 government supports into one place. We like to think of it as like citizens' information, but for business, where users can pick up the phone and speak to one of our advisors directly. Our tagline is "Support starts here," and we'd encourage every business to contact us to talk to somebody over the phone and to really make it easier to access all of those supports.
To engage directly with an advisor for support, visit neh.gov.ie or phone 01 727 2100.
Are you paying over the odds for TB testing? In this week's Irish Farmers Journal, we reveal a huge variation in the prices vets are charging for hard tests. Taoiseach to lead Cabinet Committee to defend nitrates derogation. Beef prices reach €6 per kilo as lambs hit €8. Minister could reopen acres for new entrant farmers. We talked to Minister Helen McEntee about the closure of rural Garda stations. And could a new tax regime protect farmland from super rich investors? All inside this week's Irish Farmers Journal, on sale now.
Don't miss the Highland Radio Christmas concert on Monday the 9th of December in the Mount Errigal Hotel, Letterkenny. Tickets are just €27.50 each and are available at Highland Radio and ticket outlets including the Mount Errigal Hotel, Simpsons Bar, Carndonagh, the Cope Dunlow and Alexander's Ballybuffet. Or contact us today on 074 91 25000 or visit the outlet at highlandradio.com for details on our package deals.
Now, as you would be aware, a meeting took place yesterday between a number of families of those who died or indeed were injured in the Creasla tragedy. They met with Minister Helen McEntee. They're calling for an independent inquiry into the cause of the tragedy. The group collectively is known as the Creasla Family Support Group. Around about 40 people at least are represented by them. They've, of course, been directly affected by the explosion. Damien Tansey's solicitor for some of the families and was in attendance yesterday. Damien, thank you so much for joining us to give us an update. I do appreciate it.
Good morning, Greg.
So,
yes.
Damien,
we act for about 20 of the families involved in the tragedy.
Okay, very good, Damien. Thank you for that. Now, Damien, what are the families calling for that goes beyond what's ongoing in terms of Garda and other agencies investigating it? Why do they believe that an independent inquiry is needed and it's needed immediately?
Well, proportionately, this tragedy in Creasla was greater than the 9/11 tragedy in the US and greater than the Grenfell tragedy in London in terms of scale. If you compare the populations of the two countries, then 10 lives the loss of 10 lives tragically in Creeslough is a greater tragedy than those other two tragedies, although it's very difficult, as you will expect, to compare tragedies one with the other. In those two cases, there was an inquiry set in train by the appropriate authorities immediately. Now, the only power with the authority to establish an overarching inquiry in this case is the government. The government is the only power with the authority, the only power with the resources to establish an inquiry. And what the families that we represent, and I think every other family, seek is a statutory inquiry that will be established by the government under, say, the chairmanship of a sitting High Court judge or a retired High Court judge of some eminence. The inquiry will have the capacity to summons witnesses, take evidence under oath, make findings of fact, make adverse findings, and where there is conflict between different accounts of what transpired, to be able to resolve that conflict. Now, you mentioned that there are a number of investigations underway. That is true. But those investigations are quite net and discrete in terms of their functions and their scope. For example, there's a Garda inquiry underway. Now, the Garda inquiry is with a view to determining if a crime was committed. Now, as you know, the bar for a crime conviction is very, very high. The reasonable doubt yardstick for measuring complicity in a crime or measuring the need for a conviction is extremely high. If the person, the accused, is in a position to create a doubt in the mind of the jury or in the mind of the judge, that person is entitled to the benefit of the doubt. Now, it will be another at least 2 years, if not more, before a criminal trial takes place. That's if the the Director of Public Prosecutions decide that a charge should be levelled against one or a number of people. That decision hasn't been made yet. And when it will be made, the Minister indicated yesterday that her expectation and hope is that the decision by the Director of Public Prosecutions will be made in the first quarter of next year. Now, the Minister was accompanied by Minister McConaughey and Minister Ryan, both members of the Cabinet. So the seriousness with which this is being viewed by the government is reflected in the fact that there was effectively a fifth of the Cabinet at the meeting yesterday. There are 15. So that's the first. The Garda investigation is underway. There's also an investigation underway by the HSA, the Health and Safety Authority. But that too is a very discreet, net type of investigation. This was a workplace, and the HSA is concerned to determine whether the workplace was in any way dangerous or hazardous for the workforce. And finally, the Minister Ryan's department, which has responsibility for all matters relating to gas and fuels and petrol and oil and so on, an investigation is underway under the auspices of his department. So that's 3 investigations that are underway. And all of them are dovetailing with the other, and none of them are prejudicing the other. Now, the Minister indicated yesterday in response that she couldn't proceed immediately to the creation of the statutory inquiry because of a fear and a concern that it might prejudice or interfere with the Garda prosecution. Now, if the other 3 investigations that I mentioned a moment ago are able to be conducted on a parallel basis and to be able to dovetail one with the other and to be able to carry out their mandates without prejudicing one another, what's to prevent the statutory inquiry proceeding in a similar manner?
Okay, that's
that's
an interesting reason, because we've seen other cases, other inquiries into matters in Donegal that have been unpublished for many, many years for fear that it might at some point interfere. My point being, that is an argument that could almost be used in perpetuity not to hold this type of an inquiry if that were the...
Well, that's the danger, Greg.
Yeah.
You see, there's a vacuum of information. We're more than 2 years post this tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
It's the biggest single loss of life following a tragedy of this nature ever in the history of the state. And the only authority with the power to establish an inquiry hasn't moved in that direction. And as a consequence, there is this vacuum. And into that vacuum is pouring all sorts of lies and rumours and so on, and that's very disquieting for the bereaved and the people who suffered.
But that being said,
Damien,
too,
catastrophic injuries.
My apologies, Damien. We do have to also factor in, though, that this is a small community, and it might be a very difficult process to go through. It might even be divisive within the community to go through this type of a process, to have this level of inquiry. But I suppose that shouldn't be used, if it is to be the case, that shouldn't be used as an excuse not to have it.
No, there is all of the people that attended the meeting yesterday and those people that we act for that didn't attend the meeting are of one mind. They all want an inquiry. They all want this vacuum to be plugged, this vacuum of information. They need to know. And, they've lost loved ones. There were 10 people died in this tragedy. And all of their families see it as their role to vindicate their memory and to vindicate their lives.
Mm-hmm.
They're not here to fight for themselves. And they see it as their role in life now to insist and demand that an inquiry of a kind that will produce a worthwhile outcome in terms of answering questions is essential.
Yeah.
And until that happens, they won't be able to move on. There's another issue that is very current. The owners of the building where this tragedy occurred have made a planning application to demolish the remains of the building and redevelop and establish a new business on this site. Now, this is hallowed ground as the families of the bereaved and the injured see it. It's hallowed ground. What should be erected on this site is a memorial that is worthy of the tragedy.
And Damien, can I ask, is that the unanimous view of those that you represent, that they would not like to see this redeveloped as a business, that they want this to be
absolutely. It's hallowed ground. It's where this tragedy occurred. Yes. A memorial of a suitable memorial needs to be established on the site to mark the tragedy.
It would be very hard to imagine. It would be very hard to imagine standing on the same space where one of these people drew their last breaths, and we can identify on that footprint where that might have happened. I personally would struggle to stand there, I don't know, loading a bag of coal into my car. I don't want to be crude or insensitive.
Or to conduct any type of a transaction.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that's the way they feel.
Damien, what are other key...
The initiative taken by the current owners in making an application for planning is, in the current climate, and so soon after the event, is insensitive in the extreme.
Mm-hmm. Okay, it's very difficult
and
because,
lacks humanity and lacks compassion.
Yes, I understand exactly where you're coming from, and I don't want to position myself here in any way awkward, but there might be those within the community that feel that this type of a premises needs to be returned. But anyway, that's a conversation for another day. Damien, obviously, if this inquiry was greenlit, the scope of it, right, would have to be determined. But is it easy to identify some key questions that need answers? That an inquiry might deliver that a Garda or HSA investigation may not?
Well, firstly, the chairperson under whose auspices the inquiry would be conducted would have the authority to summon witnesses and to take evidence under oath. I mean, the basic questions are, how did this happen? Why did this happen? And who was responsible for it? I mean, they're fundamental and basic questions that the people in Creeslough want answers to, and that the people in Ireland want answers to. Ireland is a small island, and when a tragedy of this magnitude happens anywhere, then it becomes the concern of everybody. You think about the Whitty oil disaster, and you think about other disasters that happened in Ireland. Almost immediately, inquiries are set in train in order to determine what happened, how it happened, and why it happened, and who is responsible, in order to ensure that there won't be a repetition.
That's important too. Damien, in previous comments, Taoiseach, I think Tánaiste Micheál Martin suggested that he wouldn't be opposed to it, but maybe the time isn't right now, that other things have to run their course. I hope I'm not misquoting him there. Why, given the timelines that we've seen in other tragedies and disasters, why might there be, can you determine why there might be any resistance from the state to meet the family's demands?
Well, I mean, the minister engaged in some pushback yesterday on the basis of a concern that it might in some way prejudice or interfere with the Garda investigation. Now, when I replied to that protest by suggesting that there were already 3 complementary and parallel investigations underway, in circumstances where they are dovetailing one with the other, and where each has respect for the other, and where each does not prejudice the other. What's to prevent a statutory inquiry taking place with the same level of respect for the other inquiry?
And I'm sure you made that argument. You made that argument, and the minister heard that. But if she still comes back and rejects that argument, do you believe it is based on that view, or could there be? Is there any other reason why the government might resist such an inquiry, in your opinion? I don't want to bring you into the realms of speculation, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, you see, if, for example, the government puts all its eggs into the Garda investigation, if it puts all its eggs in terms of its concern in relation to this matter into the Garda investigation, how long is it going to take before there will be a court, before there will be a trial? We don't know yet, for example, if the DPP will recommend that charges be levelled against a number of people. We don't know that yet. The minister indicated that a decision in that regard might be forthcoming in the first quarter of next year, but there is no certainty about that. Now, if, assuming, for example, that the DPP does recommend that charges be levelled against individuals, how long is it going to take for that trial to come to court?
A long time. Yeah.
It'll take another number of years. And you're talking now about 4 or 5 years post-tragedy. Now, the preservation of evidence is absolutely essential in relation to any type of investigation of this nature. I mean, the site where this tragedy occurred is open to the elements. Evidence is being destroyed or compromised, or the integrity of that evidence has been undermined with the passage of time. And it's awfully important, for example, that engineers, forensic structural engineers, examine this building.
Yep. And various parties have the right for NGOs that might represent them to do so as well.
Yeah, absolutely,
Damien,
absolutely.
Damien, thank you so much for giving us so much of your time. Unfortunately, the clock is beating us, Damien. I'd love to revisit this with you again, but for now, thank you very much for your time. It's greatly appreciated.
Not at all. Thank you.
Take care. Damien Tansey, Slester, for 20 of the families who was in attendance in that meeting that day. Right, I just have time to come back with the weather and a quick goodbye.
Today's show is brought to you by the Waterfront Hotel Dunlow. December 14th, Christmas party night. Drinks reception, 4-course festive dinner, and the amazing hard-to-beat band, followed by a late-night DJ. Only €45 per person. Limited availability. The Waterfront Hotel Dunlow.
This Halloween, Mace is serving up a spooktacular €1 deal. Scare away your sweet tooth with the fantastic Cadbury Dairy Milk large bar for only €1. But beware, this beastly bargain is only available for a limited time. So visit your local Mace and pick up the